Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. Big news day, as I'm sure you can tell. We're gonna be talking about some of the biggest news of the day, including the Supreme Court finally weighing in sort of on what's going on in Texas, as well as the flooding in the East Coast. But today is Thursday, and so you enter this day not knowing who is going to be my co-host. Well, we've got a treat for you. For the first time ever, Jackson White co-hosting. Jackson, welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's always good to just, chop it up with you about all types of stuff. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're very glad to have you on. Now, you've been on the show before talking about Politiscope. But if people are not familiar with the work that you do for Politiscope, tell us a little bit about it.
Oh yeah, Politiscope's a platform where we help people understand what different bills that have been passed or that are up on the floor of Congress mean, how it will affect them, who voted for and against it, help you keep up with campaigns. We focus our news sources on policy. So it's pretty much just a platform to help you educate yourself and take action with a variety of different features. We got some new things coming out soon, and pretty much, we're just all about facts and helping people to disseminate through all the garbage that's going on all over the place. So great. Downloaded this on iOS and Android.
That's awesome. Can I ask you a question? Because I just have my gut feeling, but you actually work in this area. It feels like less bills are being considered and passed. Is there any reason to believe that, or am I just following my gut in the wrong direction?
No, your gut's absolutely correct. There's really not been too much activity, and part of what we cover, again, like you said, is legislation. But especially just with the growing polarization, and to like the early focus when Biden first came in on COVID and really dealing with that. And a lot of things that are more executive decisions like Afghanistan and things like that. That's really been what's mostly been taken up Biden's administration so far. But your gut's absolutely correct.
Awesome. Well, we're very glad to have you here, and we certainly have a lot to talk about on this episode of the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching, regardless of what platform you're on. And if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream so that people know we're live, that would be great. And if you want to send us tweets, comments, super chat, stuff like that, we'll respond during our breaks. But with all that said, Jackson, you ready to jump into some news?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, well, hold on your butts because the weather's about to get rough. Let's jump into this video. That footage you were just seeing is taken from the teaser trailer for the reboot of The Day After Tomorrow. I'm joking, no, that's New York right now, just about 1 month after another horrendous bout of flooding. Horrible weather has taken over the East Coast as Ida continues across the country. Now we're very lucky that Jackson, our co-host today, is actually right in the thick of things. So can you tell us a little bit about what the past bit's been like?
Yeah, well, I'm here in North Jersey, so people up in the city and more in South Jersey along the coast really got it a lot worse. But even here, power's out, the gas has been knocked out. A lot of people I know who were just trying to travel back from the city ended up getting stuck on the highways. And what I think is really interesting about this is, as we've been going back and forth with infrastructure arguments for quite some time, I think this is a beautiful example of why we're not taking it seriously enough, and how really the conversation really in and of itself just isn't substantial about not wanting to spend $3.5 trillion, Kirsten Sinema and Manchin and all that back and forth. This is exactly why we need better infrastructure, because this is happening all over the country. But again, even where I'm at, it's just been a big mess.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's been not only historic, that's what they're saying, historic flooding. It's also been deadly. 8 reported dead so far. As always, we can only hope that that's the extent of it, but we fear that it could end up being worse. The first ever flash flood emergency warnings for New York City being issued. And so Jackson's 100% right. We are going to have this stupid conversation about 3.5 trillion being too expensive. What is it going to cost when New York's subway system is completely destroyed by the flooding that it already can't handle, and it's only going to get worse every year from here on out? Now have that same story for Amtrak and for roads and for bridges and for homes along every waterway in the country. That is going to be incredibly expensive, and I would argue we can't afford that. But as of right now, we had a 50-year-old man reported dead, a 48-year-old woman, a 2-year-old boy found unconscious and unresponsive late yesterday inside a home, pronounced dead. One death was confirmed in New Jersey as well. And look, I want to jump ahead to, we have this flood hazard mapper. And if we can bring this up, it's from the New York City Department of City Planning. Jackson, I don't know if you remember back in Inconvenient Truth, they would do these map visualizations of different cities along the coast, and they would show, here's what it looks like now, and here's what it's gonna look like when the oceans rise. This isn't the exact same thing, but it sure makes me feel, it makes me think about that as we're experiencing this flooding.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's not just, as you mentioned, the cost in dollars, but the cost in lives. As this really explodes out of control, where are people gonna go when it's too hot for them to even drink water in places, when wars are waged over the access to that water? And this is a lot closer than we believe. And again, every single year, I'm 29 years old, and in my lifetime, I've seen just climate drastically get worse every single year in a variety of ways. I remember Katrina all the way until now. And unfortunately, as the problem just stacks and compounds upon itself, that's making it more expensive, and it's making it more of a challenge, and it's making it more of a hurdle to jump over. And so, those maps, like you just had on the screen and pointing out an Inconvenient Truth, it's all coming true in a very short amount of time. And it's unfortunate that we just have so many roadblocks in place to give the will of the people a chance.
100%, and far too few elected officials actually talking about this. We're going to turn to one who is, but to the team, feel free to put up some of that B-roll, because I'm originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut, but it's been a while since I've lived on the East Coast. But I spent a good amount of time in New York. Every video that was coming up on my Twitter feed looked like the end of the world. Like, that is not what streets in Manhattan are supposed to look like. Flooded so that cars are floating, subway stations being flooded. And by the way, it reminds me, we just showed like a month ago, I believe it was in China, they had an experience of their subway flooding. Well, now it's here. Now it's everywhere, because the parts of the earth that aren't on fire are flooding. That is basically our reality. And I want to give brief credit to Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who of course is one of those in DC who's been taking this most seriously, but with so far little success, saying, experiencing all this flooding in New York City right now and thinking about all the politicians who told me that pursuing a Green New Deal to adapt our national infrastructure to climate change is unrealistic and too expensive, as if doing too little is the responsible adult thing to do.
Sweep it under the rug,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we do. Sweep it under the rug until the rug's floating above our heads.
Exactly, and we're trying to hold on to the rug.
Right, so.
Yeah. And by the way, she also pointed out one thing. One of the videos that was really going viral on Twitter was of a Grubhub delivery being done via bike. And she tweeted, please do not be the person who orders delivery during a flash flood that the NWS has deemed a dangerous and life-threatening situation. It puts vulnerable people at risk. If it's too dangerous for you, it's too dangerous for them. Raid your cabinets or ask a neighbor to help.
Eat the beans.
Exactly, like you've got cans of vegetables that have been there for 6 months. You should probably get around to those at some point, because if not now, when? Honestly,
exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, like I hope that the damage that's been done won't get any worse. I'm seeing now, I'm learning via our lower third that the death toll is up to 14 right now. Just devastating. People left without electricity. State of emergency for the state. Jackson.
And after all the money, and to consider, I just thought after all the money that's been spent in COVID response, it's just for all the arguments again about fiscal responsibility. In what way is it responsible to not have anything prepared for any types of potential damages? And not just potential damages, but predictable routine damages. Things that we know are coming, and just so that an extra house on the lake can be bought. I mean, that's really what it all boils down to when it comes down to the people who make these final decisions, who have the final say so. It just boils down to their personal greed because there's no other logic in it.
I agree. And look, if you're a rich person listening to this, I would heed Jackson's words very specifically. Put your beach house on a lake, not on the ocean, because it's just gonna get destroyed because of your callous, selfish view of the world. Anyway, we'll see as this develops. Again, it's every day there's some disaster. I'm not even showing you another fire tornado video I saw going around because those are things that happen all the time now. But obviously thinking about the people of the Northeast as the West is still on fire and all of this, just devastating.
We live in revelation, man.
It feels like that.
Yeah, we living through revelation.
Jackson, why, if climate change was just hypothetical, it's just in the future, or maybe it was really subtle, like people are dying, but it's hard to know exactly who and exactly when. I could almost get people not doing anything, but I feel like we constantly have shoved in our face reminders of how bad this already is. And even that doesn't seem to do anything, not just abstractly at any point in the political cycle, but like while we're considering an infrastructure bill, we still have no idea if they're going to take climate change seriously in it, as we're pounded by fire after tornado, after storm, after flooding, and it doesn't seem to do anything. If not that, what will?
Personal things getting compounding, I think that there is definitely a breaking point just because survival is a part of life. It's built into every living thing. At the end of the day, we're built to push for our survival. But unfortunately, there's still enough people in enough areas that aren't suffering quite bad just yet for there to be really an alarm about let's really do something. People who may be more in middle America, not that there aren't catastrophes there, but who are looking at this as a coastal problem. These are the coastal elites, or even if they're not maybe political in that way, this isn't my problem. And it's just, other than that, I don't really know what else could be, except there's enough people impacted. I mean, imagine if COVID was like as deadly as and widespread as Ebola is, like how Ebola really, if COVID as quickly as it spread, if Ebola spread like that, we would have millions of people dead. Instead of a million, which is almost a million, which is still unacceptable and ridiculous. But maybe it would take something that catastrophic to where half or a quarter of the country is suffering. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And there's so much escape that we can go through online and social media and stuff. So
that is definitely true. That is definitely true. Well, look, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, Jackson and I will be talking about other news, including his recent trip to the Texas Youth Summit. It's really something. So we're gonna show some video from that after this. Okay, let's see what the audience has been talking about. Tyler Hackner sent in a super chat saying Mother Nature is pissed. Yeah, I mean, Mother Nature is just doing what she's going to do and we get to influence it. Even if some people can't conceive of the fact that we have that power, we do, we're just not wielding it responsibly. Tyler also said, hope everyone is staying safe. My family is in the Northeast. Yes, I have family, still in in the Valley and Shelton and stuff like that. I hope that they're okay. Non-Human Humanist says, there are many reasons for an abortion, but 100% of unwanted pregnancies are caused by sperm. Just for efficiency, shouldn't we be working on the root cause? Millions of them undocumented can appear and they move fast. Jesus. Yeah, no, there's no responsibility, no responsibility for the man in any of what's going on in Texas, but we'll be talking about that more later. Foxdog West, thank you for your super chat, much appreciated. Susan says, please have Jackson on more often. He's so splendid.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Susan's very nice. George says, mankind's worst enemy is mankind. Always has been, always will be.
Yes.
That and bears. Okay, Big says in the Twitch chat, I give it 5 years until the rich start building domes. Sure, I mean, they've already got fenced in communities, why not domes? Urolino says, who is with John? I don't remember his name. Well, that's Jackson. Jackson's been on before, he's been on, how many times do you think you've done the main show now? A few, right?
5 over the last like 3 years, probably maybe like 5 times. Nice. 5 or so. Awesome. I'm gonna be on the power panel on the 17th with Shank and I think Francesca. I
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, that
and Urolino, if you want to find out more about what Jackson's about, you can of course follow him on Twitter, and you can also download Politiscope.
Yes, definitely check that out.
Okay, let's see. Lieutenant MacMG says, seriously, if it's not flooding, it's fire or tornadoes or mudslides or droughts and heat waves or even so many bugs it's unlivable. It's friggin' nuts. It is. It's time to terraform Earth. Eileen says, most of the people who perished lived in basement apartments. Some of the neighborhoods had ongoing flooding issues, which were supposedly going to be addressed by local government. No, that's a great point. Because again, like, it's not, even in a place like New York, it's not affecting everyone evenly. There are massive class influences on this for the people who were able to get out quickly, and the sorts of homes that are actually being most directly affected by the flooding. So great point, Eileen. Want to thank Charles Roach, who just became a tier 3 member on YouTube, getting access to our monthly live Q&As. Charles, I look forward to talking to you in about 2 weeks. Bridget joined at tier 2. Thank you, Bridget. Very much appreciated. Let's see, we have 1 minute left. So Lieutenant MacMG cheered 1,000 bits on Twitch. Thank you. Fat guy named Tiny subscribed for 6 months, says, woot, 6 months already, made it to the end of the second trimester. This Twitch baby is finally viable. Thank you. Too soon considering what's going on in Texas, but thank you for being here for 6 months. Izzy Omega subscribed for 15 months, says, just eat the beans. I'm hoping that's a reference to what Jackson and I were talking about with people's shelves. Ellinger hit 15 months as well. It's a big 15-month sort of day. It says time flies when you're having fun. A particular sort of fun, but yes, thank you. Odin Dev hit 9 months, says stream baby on TDR, let's go. And then put both a Bernie emoji and the GG dog, thank you, appreciate that. And a hype train hit level 4 with 17 gift subs. I'm not seeing the gift subs here, but we're gonna track them down. We'll give you credit in a little bit. Thank you everybody who's being such a good ambassador for the channel and for the network. We got a lot more news to discuss. We'll be right back after this. Okay, everybody, let's jump back into it and see what we can learn about the opposition. So recently there was the Texas Youth Summit, which we talked a little bit about on the show, but of course I wasn't there. I don't necessarily envy anyone who was, but we do have someone who was there. So Jackson, you went to the Texas Youth Summit and you had an experience there. Tell me, how did you decide to go to this event?
Well, really, I just had the opportunity to do it, and I thought that it would be a good chance to kind of just show what real people are thinking in different areas. And my approach was just, I was just there to be. I was cordial. I was cool with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't there to cause any trouble. And there were some people who were genuinely nice people. They maybe just see things in a different type of way, or at least on a surface level. And then there were some people who were, you could kind of just get a certain vibe from them. Yeah. And we actually ended up getting permanently banned from the Mims Baptist Church.
You're banned for life from a church.
Yeah, banned for life from the Mims Baptist Church because Jesus does not want us there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, they're speaking for Jesus. Okay, well, you'll need to repent, clearly. Yes. No, but like I'm glad that it was you doing this because I think everyone watching can agree. You give off a very calm, measured vibe. You're not gonna get in people's face and shake them or anything. You went there wanting to actually learn. So let's get into a little bit of what you found. So I think in this first video, you're asking people about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Let's see what you got.
Do you think that Biden should be impeached for the way that we withdrew?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think he should, along with, Nancy and Harris. And I mean, it's punishable, could be by death. And I think if not, there should be absolute jail sentence time.
I think Joe Biden should be impeached. Personally, hate him. Yeah. I hate him with a passion. Definitely disagree with everything about the liberal left side. I disagree with all their values. I disagree with all Joe Biden and Kamala Harris values. Like I said, I hate them. In the end, they're all bad and sinful people, and they're not right in the head.
Okay, tell us about that. Was that representative of basically the vibe at the summit?
For the most part, but like people were happy to be there. You have to keep in mind, because it's a group thing. People are coming together under a common purpose and a common cause, and something that makes them feel that human connectedness that we can't escape our desire for. Mm-hmm. So it's a real thing. It's not just like people who have these ideas. It's an actual community of people. And so, one of the interesting things, like, you didn't see, those were edited clips, but a lot of the feedback that you get when you probe them, like, what do you really think about that? Or when, what type, for I hate Joe Biden. Well, outside of his administration, what throughout his political career do you not disagree with that he's done? And they'll just say stuff like, everything, none of it. I don't agree with any of it. Or like you'll ask them questions, and then when you ask them to kind of explain and elaborate a bit deeper, there's really not much there. And so, again, that's hard to combat against, because, we talk a lot about, I know you talk a lot about algorithms in different shows that you do, and people can see what they're drawn to, not necessarily what they're looking for. So and that really kind of grows that community, because, this was just north of Houston in Conroe, Texas. So, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, and look, you are trying to hear them out. You're being very calm about it. You remind me of, we used to have Emma Vigeland at the network, would go to Trump rallies and talk to them. And like, she was good because she has a poker face. I think you have a good poker face. But the issue is, like, she hates him. You hate Joe Biden. Like, I'm a leftist. Joe Biden's not my guy. But you hate him? Like, I could devil's advocate. I could come up with some reasons theoretically to hate him. I don't think they're the ones she's thinking of. Like, he deserves the death penalty for withdrawing from Afghanistan.
I was just thinking of that. Like, that's really.
So what, for withdrawing along the plan that Trump wanted to do? Or, oh no, probably not that. Probably that there was the terror attack that killed 13 soldiers. That was a devastating tragedy. Okay, so should every president who's been executed who has soldiers die? Because Trump had like 60 soldiers die in Afghanistan alone while he was president, so he'd be killed like 5 times over then, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense, Jackson.
And what was interesting too, the woman who said it may be punishable by death, she was actually a real, like, just cheerful, like, general good energy. But obviously, it's just when you really dig down. What I mean? Like, that's when all that stuff really comes to surface. And I'm if I was to go up there and be real challenging, you know what I mean, then it definitely wouldn't have gone over well. But again, she was really nice. She was happy to talk to me. You know what I mean? And it's just, but
the people you talked to, did they? Because you mentioned that when you tried to dig deeper for details, they didn't really have any. So this is a youth summit at a church. Did they seem like very politically driven people, or were they there for the religion side of things?
Well, all of them seemed to be politically driven, and there were people that I talked to who had a bit more like traditional Republican points about like regulations, and actually pretty much no one there was against leaving Afghanistan. It's just like all the things and how we did it and stuff like that. And there were people there who talked a lot about, like, people whose opinions were like, we have to put God back into everything, and God's been taken out of everything. And interestingly too, one of the women, she was like, I was like, well, what about people who may adhere to other religions or who may think of God in other types of ways? And she said, well, it all boils down to the same thing. But what matters is that you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. You know what I mean? So there's just that it's that closed-mindedness, but yeah, they were all very politicized for sure.
Sure, yeah. It almost sounded like she was really onto something, and then not so much, not so much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have one other video, so let's jump into this.
Yeah. Hey guys, I hate to break in here. Y'all have permission to be here on the property?
We do not.
Okay, y'all need to go to the other side of the road. You can't be anywhere on this property.
Y'all have a good one.
Y'all come back onto the property, y'all will be arrested for criminal trespass.
All right.
Okay, y'all haven't asked for permission or anything. Halfway of the ditch to the road, you're good. And anything halfway from the ditch this way is criminal trespass.
All right.
Okay, so you were being thrown out. They're kicking you out. So were they right to be kicking you out there? Was it criminal trespassing?
No, I mean, it was a public event, so we had technically the right to be there, but I think they just, I mean, I'm a 6'6" guy with dreads and I'm not white, you know what I'm saying? So like that's pretty attention drawn. And actually after that we came back and when they banned us, because we were just trying to get some clarity, like, well, let's get maybe people a little bit further away from the doors. But yeah, he ended up getting the police involved, and that could have went bad, but it ended up being fine. But yeah, he found out we were with TYT, and then he felt a certain type of way about that. So
I think he was worried about what would be said, but of course you're just asking questions. They're the ones saying things that might get people in trouble.
Yeah.
Anyway, more of this is available for people to watch, right?
Yeah, it's on. There's a bit more coming out, but there's clips on the main TYT channel, Rebel HQ, talking about it. You saw a little bit of the Afghanistan withdrawal, people's opinions on Biden being impeached or not, a bit of their religious views, stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody should definitely go and subscribe to Rebel HQ. We got great contributors there. You can see more of the footage. More power to you to giving them a chance, hearing them out. Especially in Texas, it's rough times in Texas, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, it went well.
Okay, so why don't we move into our next topic? A little bit of a thematic link here. We'll see how it goes. We're still dealing with the fallout from the rally in DC on January 6th that resulted in the storming of the Capitol building, and it turns out we're now also just a couple of weeks away from a potential double dip into that territory. Apparently, on September 18th. Far-right extremist groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers are planning to attend a rally in the US Capitol that's designed to demand justice for the hundreds of people who've been charged in connection with the January insurrection. No words yet on when the rally will be held to demand justice for those who will be arrested for what they do on September 18th. We'll have that information for you in the future, I guess. But anyway, people have been talking to federal officials about this event, and we know that hopefully this time around, they're gonna be taking it seriously security-wise, with the Capitol Police saying the department was closely monitoring September 18th and planning accordingly. And the Metropolitan Police Department is activating its entire force for that day and has put specialized riot officers on standby, according to law enforcement officials. So Jackson, obviously, the 6th was brutal. There was 1,000 assaults on federal officials, according to body cam footage. And the hope is that the security will be a little bit more prepared for this time. Do you think that that's likely?
Probably not. I mean, I think that this is still an issue overall that generally isn't taken seriously because of the type of people who are in the Proud Boys. They're kind of just like average, everyday people who in general, like they maybe aren't on big criminal radars. These are just kind of people who are upset, who view life in a way where maybe they're victims of other people's success or access. So they're still overall not really taken seriously. They're still looked at kind of like it's just a bunch of goofy guys who maybe cause a bit of ruckus. And if they were maybe a bit more effectively organized, then people may take them more seriously. But I think there's so much going on in the country. You know what I mean? I think that this is still kind of something that people who aren't really involved in politics may not even know who the Proud Boys are.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. Although, like depending on the area, like if you live in Portland, obviously been in LA too, like they're sending their people to attack people, to glom onto other causes and start violence. So that's the concern. I want to give you a little bit of information from Frank Figliuzzi, former assistant director for counterintelligence at the FBI, talking about the concerns about the 18th in this video.
Well, my contacts in federal law enforcement, Ali, tell me that they are all over this. This has certainly got their attention, in large part because the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers reportedly are expressing interest in showing up. This rally has obtained a permit. The numbers are expected to be large. FBI, DHS, Capitol Police, Washington Metropolitan Police, all making arrangements, including some police departments not allowing any leave, calling in all officers for the day. You mentioned the discussion of putting the fence back up. Here's what's energized some of the potentially bad or violent actors here. The preparations are going to be there. The security will be tight. One of the concerns I have is, will the security be so tight that there will be soft targets perceived around the rest of the country where some violence could play out? That's why DHS last Friday reportedly telephonically briefed law enforcement executives across the country regarding what they're seeing and the need to be vigilant, particularly in the lead up to September 18th.
So the concern there that what's happening in DC is going to be the most high profile protest, but it will also be the best secured one, ideally, hopefully. And that might mean that Proud Boys in other cities might commit acts of violence. To be fair, I heard similar things about the 6th and some of the protests that happened right after the 6th. And not to say that there wasn't any violence, but there was nothing on the scale of the 6th. So hopefully they're just being over-prepared, Jackson, and we don't have to worry about Sacramento being attacked and other things like that. It seems like they're taking it seriously, but I don't want people to rest on their laurels, I guess I'll just say.
Well, even if they just have, halfway of a decent set of police officers ready and just agents wherever, they should be able to get it. Because like with the 6th, those are people from all over the country. So Trump supporters, hard right Republicans who weren't necessarily parts of the Proud Boys. They came from a variety of different backgrounds. This is more specifically the Proud Boys, so it should be easier to keep track of, and it should be easier to handle. So if they're halfway serious, then they should get it. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and also the Oath Keepers, who at least ostensibly are former members of the armed forces, and we know on the 6th there was a number of people who'd been in the military that had served in police departments or were currently serving in police departments. That's part of the fear. But it's also likely that our intelligence agencies do have plants inside of these organizations. Hopefully they'll provide good information. I just want to throw out one or two other things in advance of the 18th, which of course we'll be covering. One is that one of the concerns that came out of the 6th was, you remember those pipe bombs that were placed? They never, as far as they know, they never caught the person that planted those pipe bombs. And so these were explosive devices that were placed outside the headquarters of both the Republican and Democratic National Committees on January 5th, the night before the riot. They weren't found until the 6th, but they were placed the night before. It's possible that someone who was arrested did plant those and we just don't know. But as of right now, Jackson, somebody planted bombs and they could still be hanging around. They could show up at the 6th or at the 18th. Even if they're not involved with the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, they could just use it as an opportunity to try again what they tried on the 6th. So that's sort of my fear, that this might attract other people not affiliated with the groups that might commit acts of violence.
Exactly, and again, those are the people who really would slip under the radar. Because if, again, this is specifically a Proud Boys response, so it opens up the opportunities for just a regular guy who may have ill will toward the establishment or what have you in a variety of ways, and who would practically get ignored until after the fact. So
exactly. Yeah. Now I want to point out one other difference between this and the 6th, at least as of right now, is the 6th had very high profile Republican speakers at it, helping to organize it and speaking at the event. So like people like Ron Johnson and Donald Trump himself and Rudy Giuliani and all of that. In this case, supposedly not so much. According to the Daily Beast, they've been talking to a number of people that were in Trump's orbit. 2 people familiar with the matter say they aren't aware of former President Trump even receiving an invitation to come to this demonstration. I hope that he does not. To be fair, the event's organizer is Matt Brainard, who used to be the acting director of data and strategy during the early months of Trump's first presidential campaign, but he was fired after just 5 months. So far there doesn't seem to be much of a connection with Trump's actual circle, which I think is a good thing because it seems like less likely to draw a bigger crowd and a more violent crowd if they don't believe that they have like the official like thumbs up of Donald Trump. Any other thoughts about this, Jackson?
I think that hopefully, my last thoughts really are, obviously, hopefully that they take this seriously, but I think it's important to notice that stuff like this is going to continue. Just because the growing sentiments in the country, the economic realities that we face. I just moved to a new apartment, and the apartment I was in is now $200 more expensive than it was last year. And people aren't making any more money. So small things like that you may not think are directly related to people's political actions are directly related to it. As people are continuing to be dissatisfied with, what they see as politicians not delivering or literally not delivering. So, we need to buckle up and stay ready.
That is a great point, because that sort of thing, like the housing, let alone all the other issues, are definitely out there. And you have some politicians like AOC and other members of the squad that are like, okay, here are the problems, let's fix those problems. And then you have another side, people like Tucker Carlson, the right-wing populists, that are like, oh, I see those problems. Now I can turn you to crazy, to crazy ends. Not actually addressing the problems, not trying to solve the problems, but using your frustration to send you out to attack Afghan refugees and things like that. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna take our second break, but when we come back from this, we will be talking about the update on what's going on in Texas, and then we have other news besides, so we'll see you in just a few. Okay, I see a comment on YouTube from Ricky who says Jackson is so damn on point.
All right, cool. Thank you.
DM Hertzer, thank you for your super chat, much appreciated. There was no message, just super chat, appreciate it, love the support. Okay, Borg Dragon says, my dad used to have a fake Vax card. I asked to see it and compare to mine, then tore it to pieces. I couldn't have a fake ID as a kid, so why can he have a fake Vax card to get around restrictions? Damn. Oh, I like it, but Borg, how did he respond? I can't imagine it was a good response. Anyway, yeah. Hey, sometimes you gotta be a parent to your parent.
Yeah,
make sure they stay safe. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see. Franklin Sharpslicer says, and I'm assuming this is a poem. One thing for what it's worth, one thing the uber rich deniers can't buy out, the wrath of Mother Earth. The meek will inherit the earth. Really, what will it be worth? Take heed, save your seeds. Yeah. Well, look, I don't know about all of you, but I visited one of the designed for the end of the world seed banks up in the Arctic. So when things fall apart, I'm just walking towards that. Hopefully it'll be there when I get there. Everybody needs to have a plan. JE says, wow, imagine a Christian that hates. Yeah, that is true. Like, I'm not a Christian, obviously, but aren't they like encouraged not to dwell on the hatred in their hearts? Generally, isn't that a thing?
Well, of course, but in the churches that they attend, they're taught that Jesus is there to justify their emotional desires and pulls. Jesus justifies what I want. God is on my side. That's how they see it.
That's true. They treat Jesus like a political pundit. Just tell me what I want to hear.
Exactly.
Miravina says, can all of TYT join you for safety? Yeah, so basically what's gonna happen is I'm gonna start walking across America. And like Forrest Gump, you can join up with me. And eventually, I guess, we're gonna need a boat, I guess. Maybe we can find one on the East Coast, and then
that's cool as hell.
That's gonna be cool. I'm gonna write that book.
Cool.
I'll try to pick you up in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, I'll be there with you. I'll track with you.
Nice. Andrew Singh says, how you feel about the trend in oxygen levels? I don't I don't know specifically the reference Andrew's saying. I don't know if, because that could be a COVID thing or that could be a climate thing. I'm not sure. But feel free to let us know. Ellinger says, when you get to Austin, Torchies is on me. Oh man, I hope that Torchies survives the end of the world. Jackson, have you ever had Torchies?
I haven't. I've been to Austin several times for South by, but I haven't had Torchies.
Oh, you've been there for South by and you didn't have Torchies? Man.
I guess I missed the most important thing.
Well, I don't know about that, but they are good tacos.
Yeah.
Anyway, Joshua says, have Jackson on more often, please. Love his perspective. I'm glad the audience is loving to hear.
Appreciate that.
Vicky Gray says, do they count homeless people in the count of tragedies and loss? Nope, because those that have only care about themselves. We have plenty of unused land here in Santa Blah Blah that could house many people, but NIMBY. Yeah, no, that's a very legitimate fear when you have disasters, whether it's fires out here in California or floods in New York. Great point. Okay, let's see. StrayX says, hey StrayX, I see your super chat. Says, or you could build a self-contained aquaponics setup to just have fish and leaf vegetables available, easier than heading to the Arctic. Why not both? Let's make it mobile and float it on over to Svalbard. Oh, Andrew Singh says climate. So I got really into that one and I completely forgot that those breaks end. Marissa, you are justified in being frustrated. I hit them almost always, but yeah, that one I missed, and I am a bad egg. That is true. Okay, so before we jump back into the news, and we do have some important news to get to, I do want to let you know about a few things that are coming up soon, including that on as soon as we're done here on the Damage Report, Indisputable is coming up with Dr. Rashad Ritchie and Ben Carollo of Galaxy Brain.
I'll be on there tomorrow as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll be on with Dr. Ritchie, yeah.
That's awesome. So 2 great episodes of Indisputable to look forward to. Ben Q will be up as well for a debate, so stay tuned for that. Also, this Friday, the first episode of Game Busters coming. So you got Jordan Yule, you got Brett Ehrlich every Friday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. So that is right after the bonus episode, twitch.tv/TYT. You can be a part of the show. You can sabotage their games. You can make them look like fools. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that you do as well. And also today's Thursday, so you know that you also have reactions to look forward to on Twitch, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. Ravana is gonna be doing reactions, so you got that to look forward to as well. And with that, why don't we jump back into the news? So following up from the Supreme Court's lack of involvement in what was going on in Texas, that was bad enough because that meant that SB 8, which not only criminalizes abortion after 8 weeks, but also deputizes basically anyone across the country who wants to become a bounty hunter and track down those who helped make an abortion happen and get paid $10,000 for it, could stand. Now it's worse because the Supreme Court has gotten involved and they're still letting it stand. So there was a vote 5-4 with Chief Justice John Roberts joining the court's 3 liberal members in dissent. Oh, isn't that weird? Like all the Supreme Court justices that Trump put on the court just decided to let it stand. It's so weird.
Yeah, funny how that works, right?
Yeah, Jackson, yeah. I heard that Kavanaugh wouldn't do this, and Amy Coney Barrett, she's not some kind of religious zealot who's gonna try to get rid of Roe v. Wade. Whoops, weird. Anyway, let's give you the specifics though, because there is a little bit of nuance to this. The Supreme Court has got involved, but it is possible that this will not be the last time they get involved. So what actually happened? The majority opinion was unsigned and consisted of a single long paragraph. I mean, why put a whole bunch of time into it? It's only millions of people's reproductive rights. It said the abortion providers who had challenged the law in an emergency application to the court had not made their case in the face of, quote, complex and novel procedural questions. The majority stressed that it was not ruling on the constitutionality of the Texas law and did not mean to limit procedurally proper challenges to it. So apparently these people just weren't being proper enough. But anyway, what does that mean? Well, we're gonna give you a little bit of some of the dissents, which there were several. So Sonia Sotomayor said the court's order is stunning. Presented with an application to enjoin a flagrantly unconstitutional law engineered to prohibit women from exercising their constitutional rights and evade judicial scrutiny, a majority of justices have opted to bury their heads in the sand, which is it's a great image and it's exactly what they're doing. She goes on to say, the court has rewarded the state's effort to delay federal review of a plainly unconstitutional statute enacted in disregard of the court's precedents through procedural entanglements of the state's own creation. The court should not be so content to ignore its constitutional obligations to protect not only the rights of women, but also the sanctity of its precedents and of the rule of law. So what does all this mean? It means that what Texas did, which is so underhanded and kind of cowardly, but also it's like, clever, I guess, is they're not saying abortion's illegal at 6 weeks, and if you get one, we're coming for you, or we're coming for your doctor, or anything like that, because that clearly is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has been very clear about that. And maybe, although not necessarily, even this Supreme Court wouldn't allow it. What they're saying is, we're not coming for you. Other people are coming for you. We're not a part of it, so you can't challenge us in court, which is how normally these sorts of things are challenged. That's the novel procedure of it. And everyone knows exactly what Texas is doing here. Everybody knows, and they know more importantly what the effect of this strategy is. The Supreme Court is playing dumb, saying, we need time to figure this out and all this. So, and even though they could have that time to rule on the constitutionality while temporarily blocking the order so that women have their rights, they're just like, well, we'll think about it and we'll let it stand while we do that. Jackson, it is so underhanded. Like, I feel like if you're gonna strip people of their rights, at least be willing to admit that that's what you're doing.
Well, but then it wouldn't work. You know what I'm saying? It's all about making it work. I think what's important here is to show, or to look at how litigation is an eternal process. There's always loopholes to get around. There's always loopholes to be created, and there's always some type of slick way to get away with things. And as you pointed out, just how all the chief justices got onto the court while Trump was in office. What people need to keep in mind is, as polarity in this country continues to skyrocket and stay, Congress and the Senate are going to become less and less able to do much of anything at all, which is why there's been so much of a focus on the courts, not just the Supreme Court, but just the federal court system in general. Biden actually has installed a lot of people in federal court seats. And so this battle is going to continue to go. And so this is what we really need to pay attention to. And this is why we need to pay attention to local politics, municipalities, where police laws and regulations actually get controlled. And you talk about how the Supreme Court's playing dumb. You go down to a smaller level, police get away with killing people because they're all part of the same ticket. They're, all the prosecutors and the defendants and the judges and the police chiefs, they all are in the same friend group basically, and they look out for one another. And so something as arbitrary as you pointed out at the beginning, you being able to sue someone for $10,000 if they even drove someone to an abortion appointment. And so again, this is completely arbitrary. There's absolutely no arguing it. However, we're moving further away from litigation in Congress and the Senate and more to, courts deciding final outcomes and keeping cases going for years, even decades. So
no, you're not wrong. And you're right. Biden is putting in judges, but so far he hasn't had a spot on the Supreme Court. We don't know if Breyer is going to retire. This is how it works. Trump gets 4 years, he gets 3 justices. Biden gets 4 years, maybe he gets none. That's sort of the way it works. And I'm gonna go off a little bit on what I was talking about yesterday. I'm mad, as I think a lot of people should be, but I think that you really have to make sure that you're mad at everyone who deserves it. I'm obviously mad at Donald Trump for putting these justices on there. I'm mad at them for lying about what they would do when they got on the court, but I'm also mad at the people that helped them along the way. So people like Susan Collins, who pretended that Kavanaugh was something that he wasn't, but also people like Dianne Feinstein. So I was reminded by Scott Hetchinger on Twitter, when Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearing ended, Dianne Feinstein hugged Lindsey Graham and said the hearing was one of the best she'd been involved in. Like a week before the election, Amy Coney Barrett sat there and refused to answer any questions, got onto the court anyway, even though the Republicans had said that sort of thing wasn't acceptable, and Dianne Feinstein was hugging Lindsey Graham. So there's a lot of people that are responsible for this, and also responsible for doing something about it, because as we said yesterday, this is not an unsolvable problem. when we talk about reforming the Supreme Court, some people talk about that as breaking the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court is broken. And to make that really clear, what we have right now is a supermajority of conservatives on the Supreme Court. They're put there by presidents. Do you remember the last time a Republican president actually won an election with the support of the people, the popular vote? If you went back to that time, you'd have to wait half a decade before the MCU started. It is so long ago. And despite their complete, what's that?
Reagan, the last Republican.
Well, Bush in 2004 was able to, not in 2000, but in 2004, way back in 2004. And yet they have a supermajority. They cannot get the people to support them, but the system is set up in a way that they can still have overwhelming power. So what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna like leave that there? Say, I guess there's nothing we can do for the next 50 years? There is something we can do. There's something the Democrats in the Senate can do. There's certainly stuff that Biden can do. They're choosing not to act. They're surrendering in the face of a system that is fundamentally broken, that cannot deliver to the people who actually have the majority.
I think that they don't really view it as their fight. And in such a way that I think it's such a big task and such a big undertaking. There's something in a subconscious layer that's like, this is the next generation's fight. This isn't really what I came here to do. I came here to stabilize Obamacare. I came here to, maybe add a little bit of more regulations to the system that I know and that I'm familiar with. And so, but again, the unfortunate problem with that is all these giant, literal possible extinction level problems that we're facing are just left on the back burner for us when we're 50. You know what I'm saying? Like we're in our late 20s, early mid 30s now, and we won't really be able to get to it until we're 50 and 60 and can get the reins. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, based on how they're acting, I feel like you're right, but they're dead wrong. It's not next generations. Like there's not gonna be a next generation if they don't fight now. And by the way, look, I'm jumping to expanding the Supreme Court or getting rid of the filibuster and actually passing laws, but you don't need to go that far. There's great suggestions online. Ellie Mistel, friend of the show, says Biden should hire doctors under federal authority. They could be paid for privately to get around the Hyde Amendment, and should send them to Texas to make sure that women can actually exercise their rights. I would also send them to a bunch of other states where effectively Roe v. Wade has been dead for some time. Adrienne Lawrence said she's wondering if, as commander-in-chief of the military, Biden could order military doctors in Texas to perform abortions for civilians on military bases. She doesn't know for sure if that's possible, and she is the expert, but he could look into that. There are certainly things that could be done, even short of expanding the court. And so when Biden sends out a press release saying we're gonna fight for your rights, I can't help but see earlier today their fight to continue the federal eviction moratorium. They decided they're not gonna do that anymore. They said when the Supreme Court knocked it down that they would, and they just gave up. So now they're saying they'll fight for women's abortion rights. Well, are they gonna give up in a week? When they do, will there even be a news cycle about it?
Right, hopefully a new news cycle goes over so people forget. I mean, it has to be that they're succumbing to some type of pressure, because it's not as if the entire country, and especially certain regions of the nation, aren't constantly crying out. It's not as if there aren't politically active organizations on the ground all over the country. It's just who has the higher leverage, and they're just choking. Yeah,
I think you're right. Okay, well, unfortunately, we are running out of hours, so we're gonna have to jump into our next story. Still more news to come, so let's jump into this. We've been wondering for some time, will there be any consequences for the killing of Elijah McClain? And now we find out that the police officers and the paramedics have been indicted by a grand jury. Elijah McClain, of course, is a black man who was put in a chokehold and injected with a powerful sedative 2 years ago in suburban Denver. The 5 defendants involved in his death will each face 1 charge of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide, as well as a variety of assault charges. Which, look, I don't know if you remember the details, we're gonna give you the details, seems very reasonable. So basically, the indictment was unsealed just yesterday, and it accuses the paramedics of failing to follow medical protocols before and after they injected Mr. McClain with ketamine. Mr. McClain was already handcuffed when the medics arrived on the scene, and the indictment says they didn't talk to him, they didn't check his vital signs or properly monitor him after giving him a powerful drug. And so in short, effectively, he was walking home from a convenience store. He had a bag of cans of iced tea. He was listening to music. He's wearing a mask, and cops ran up on him and began hassling him. He tried to talk to them, to reason with them. By the way, I saw again his last words. I can't breathe. I have my ID right here. My name is Elijah McClain. That's my house. I was just going home. I'm an introvert. I'm just different. That's all. I'm so sorry. I have no gun. I don't do that stuff. I don't do any fighting. Why are you attacking me? And yet they did. And then even once the paramedics came, they decided to sedate him, and he died as a result of that. All these people that we're supposed to be able to depend on, that are supposed to be responsible, we give them the literal power of life and death, and they did not care at all about Elijah McClain. Jackson, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that just in general, this is, and again, luckily, now I had an encounter with the police and they were cool, but the security guard really wanted them on me. And so just in general, the attitude that police are there to keep a certain people in place, to keep a certain people with the idea that they have to stay in line. This even goes back to our previous discussion about the abortion laws. The right-wing conservative mindset in general is that without strict authority on people's sense of freedom, there can only be chaos, and therefore they must be in that place. I mean, so much to the point where you're choking and sedating a child. You have all these adults and these grown men on this child because there's a deep, pervasive belief that that's necessary in order to keep the order. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's really my thoughts on it. And again, this goes back to, if we want change, we got to get to the municipalities, we got to get to the local politics, because if we don't do that, then this will not change.
Exactly. Yeah. And there has to be accountability. Thankfully, there will be charges in this case, but the knee-jerk cliched response is it's just bad apples. So who? Both the cops and the paramedics, I guess, were just bad apples too, because they didn't care. And then 3 other officers were fired, and 1 resigned last year over photos mimicking the chokehold that was used on Elijah McClain. So just the people that work with him, I guess, are bad apples too.
The culture, the attitude, and who it attracts.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. Yeah. Who it attracts and what influence it has on people who go into that system to conform, to be okay with that sort of thing. Yeah, and we can see the effect. Thankfully, look, I guess there will be some consequences, but Elijah McClain is dead, as so many people are. Anyway, okay. It's been a rough hour of the news. We do have theoretically sort of lighter stories that are coming up after this. So if you've been watching on our linear platforms, thank you so much for watching. This is where we say goodbye to you. But if you're watching on Twitch and YouTube, we have a lot more news coming up. We're gonna take a short break. We'll be back after this. Welcome back, everyone. Howdy, Twitch and YouTube. I'm here. I'm John. Jackson White joins us again as well. We got a few more stories we're going to be discussing, but before we do that, I want to let you know what's going on out there in the audience. Tyler Hackner had, I think, some pretty good basic advice for the Democrats in what's happening in Texas. And by the way, we're focusing on the reproductive rights bills, but the anti-democratic bills are just as devastating in other areas. So there's a lot going on. But Tyler says, at the very least, do something, just something. Start doing something. Show people that you actually care and that you're trying. What did you want to be president for your whole life? Did you just assume there'd be no crises? It would just be fun. Yeah,
I just wanted to make it.
RKNG says military women can't get abortions on base by military docs. They have to pay out of pocket in town. Yes, so in theory, Biden could set up some sort of national fundraising effort because the stupid Hyde Amendment, they can't spend federal dollars, but he could help to facilitate public funds going into that. They could both benefit current serving service members and civilians as well. That's a possibility.
It speaks a lot on leadership capacity as well, because you have this whole cabinet of people that you can't influence to do what you'd like, so yeah.
Yeah, and he's sitting here worried about getting criticized. The woman outside of Texas Youth Summit already hates your guts, and you didn't do anything. So
she don't even know why.
Reason.
She don't even know why she hates you.
She doesn't know, but she knows she hates you.
Right.
Anyway, Mark Saunders says, so John, if I'm hearing you right, we need to build an ark? Maybe. I've been doing a little bit of woodworking. We'll see if I can do an ark. Okay, Borg Dragon, an update on what happened with the dad, says he was pissed and I went home. I'm sure he learned the lesson, LOL. I hope. Okay, May Money in the Building says, Jackson and I are the same age and he is way smarter than me. I need to step my game up. Good to have you here, Jackson.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know if I'm smarter than you, but I appreciate it.
BC Trumpet says, we are sinful, but you say you have deep hate in your heart. Yeah, that is weird. And Egypt says it will have been 182 days since January 6th on September 18th. If they hold to their pattern, it'll be mid to late March 2022 when they organize to demand justice for the folks arrested on September 18th. We have time to prepare. I hope we do what we need to. Okay, with that, we have some stories to get into. So why don't we jump into this video?
Hello, friends. So I got back from the road Saturday night, feeling very weary. I had a headache and I just felt run down. And just to be cautious, I separated from my family, slept in a different part of the house. And throughout the night, I got fevers and sweats and I knew what was going on. So I got up in the morning, got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it, all kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything. And I also got an NAD drip and a vitamin drip, and I did that 3 days in a row. And so here we are on Wednesday, and I feel great. I really only had one bad day. Sunday sucked, but Monday was better. Tuesday felt better than Monday, and today I feel good.
Okay, so he feels good. Everyone watching this can evaluate for themselves how he looks. I assume COVID's pretty rough. From time to time over the past year and a half, I've tried to get people not to get it. But anyway, Jackson, what did you think when you heard the news that Joe Rogan, who's one of the most influential people in the world these days, had ended up getting COVID?
Well, it's not really surprising, especially, just the crowded spaces that he'll be in when he hosts fights and things like that. But, the thing about Joe Rogan is I think he doesn't take his time enough a lot when he is gonna go on rants about maybe public health or what he thinks. And I think that it kind of goes over his head how many people are listening to him. Because just in general, he seems like a decent guy, like a cool guy that you like to, I box and stuff. I like that you like to do stuff like that with. But I think he, now that he has COVID, and I'm sure you play a couple other clips in a second, how he's handling it, he kind of goes over his head, when he said, he did some segment where he was talking about making some statements on vaccines, and the person who wrote the study had to come out and say, no, that's not what it was saying. So it's just like, he was a good example of someone, like, if he would just take his time a little bit more, then I don't think that he would have as much scrutiny as he does.
Yeah. I mean, look, whether he wants to or not, he obviously has a responsibility just by virtue of the fact that he has this massive audience that will believe anything he says, or the people he has on, they will believe that these are reputable people because Joe Rogan has chosen to bring them on and generally peddle nonsense a lot of the time. So look, I've been curious about whether he was vaccinated. We don't know. He said a long time ago, I'm not an anti-vax person, but he has also said that young people who are in good health don't need to be vaccinated, which is very much not true. We reported this morning, a 13-year-old died of COVID. Young people are dying of COVID. 30-year-olds are being killed by the Delta variant at horrible rates. So it's just not true. And so it is easy, like I hope he has the most mild case of this ever. I hope that he's fine. I hope his family stays fine. But he has the resources that he can stuff himself full of monoclonal antibodies and ivermectin and stuff that is medicine and stuff that is not medicine, Z-Pack and all this stuff. He can throw $100,000 at it if he wants and not even blink. Very few people watching his audience can do that. And I worry about what they will take out of this, especially Jackson, if he does get through this, without it being a really bad case, what effect is that gonna have on his audience? Are they gonna take it more seriously, despite the fact that he had Regeneron and all of that? I worry about that.
I think a lot of that'll boil down to how he handles it and how he handles the messaging after the fact. There'll definitely be a lot of people who say, well, see, Joe had it and it wasn't that bad. If he comes out and he lets people know, like, hey, this really, and he kind of did it a little bit, but he needs to reiterate that again, like, hey, this thing really had me down. And in whatever way you can protect yourself, you should do it. And, again, it's the facts are on the side of the vaccines overwhelmingly, if not totally prevent you from getting it, they help you not get it as bad when you do.
Yeah.
The evidence is completely on the side for that. And so, I think that we'll have to see how he reacts. But, again, he can't handle his platform like private conversations with his buddies. I think he's just gotten a little bit too comfortable.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that's what he wants. I'm sure he just wants to be hanging out and having fun and smoking weed. And look, that is his right, I guess. But some people might needlessly die along the way, so that he can have his fun conversation.
Because I got people in my life who are who are more conspiratorial thinking, but they don't have giant platforms. They're not, they're not. So it's kind of easier to be like, oh, okay, well, I just won't really go there with them. Talk about other stuff. But with him, you can't really do that. You can't really just tune that part of their thoughts out like you can with regular people in your life.
Yeah. So, yeah. But by the way, our notes say that he is currently touring and he's been doing shows in Florida, which is obviously mostly COVID. It's alligators and COVID.
Yes.
And by the way, like on his video, and I had a tweet about this. A lot of people really do seem to believe like, no, like why take the vaccine? All you need to do is do a bunch of jump roping or whatever. And like that is not how this works. Sure, being in better health is a good idea. It always has been. We didn't need COVID to know that. But it's not like if you box a lot, you can't die of COVID. Bodybuilders have died of COVID. Fitness people have died of COVID.
You don't literally sweat out a virus or a sickness. It just kind of keeps your body flowing, but you're still sick. You know what I mean? And it's so
your lungs.
Right,
you're not seeing the virus. That's not how it works.
If you can't breathe, then you can't do all that jump roping and stuff. So
100%. Okay, we're gonna mix things up and maybe have a bit of a. We're gonna have to find out, but let's jump into this next topic. We got a bit of time. Right-wing pundit Candance Owens says that she has been denied a COVID test. She posted on Twitter. Holy crap, we can say that. I just received an email from a COVID testing facility that they are refusing to administer a test to me because they don't like my politics. Insane. I'm banned from making sure I don't accidentally spread COVID. Going live with the email on Instagram in 10 minutes. So we're gonna get to that email in one sec. I just want to say that the word accidentally is doing a lot of work there. When like you brag constantly about not getting the vaccine and how you refuse to wear masks unless you're legally required to. Sure, I guess it's still technically an accident if you spread it, but it's not the same sort of accident. If I go on a ladder and I fall off, that's an accident. If I smear my feet with butter and then run to the top of the ladder and fall off, it's still an accident, but it's not the same thing really. So let's just bear that in mind. But that said, she did post on Instagram the letter, and I'm gonna quickly go through it. They said, and we don't know who this is, but they said, I've just learned of this testing request, and as the owner of this business, I am going to refuse this booking and deny service. We cannot support anyone who has proactively worked to make this pandemic worse by spreading misinformation, politicizing and discouraging the wearing of masks, and actively dissuading people from receiving life-saving vaccinations. That said, they do give her an alternative to do, but it's worded a little bit funny. The only other local testing option is the free kiosk by City Hall. They mail their tests to Texas and have inconsistent result times, do not take appointments, so it's walk in only, midday weekdays in their back alley. So, and then they talk about how they've done a bunch of work that she is undermining. It's an interesting thing for a testing clinic to do, Jackson. What do you make of it?
Well, first I want to take this opportunity to say that Candance Owens is a clown. And after that, I'd like to take the opportunity. I'd like to just say, well, at the end of the day, and I was kind of curious when I first saw this, like, did they actually say because of your politics, or was it like if you're not vaccinated and on mask? But at the end of the day, that's not a public institution, is it? It's not a, she can just go get a COVID test in another place, which again goes back to the whole thing about her being a charlatan and just a showman, is she's taking an opportunity to blow this up and spread the narrative for what people want to hear. I mean, she's facing a $20 million defamation lawsuit because she made a 40-minute video talking about things that she said, I can't prove this. I have absolutely no proof of this, but this woman was doing all this illegal stuff and she's a terrible person. And for 40 minutes, that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of dedication, because it takes time and effort to be a clown, and you got to keep the show going. And I have I mean, she really, Candance, I really don't like her. Like I really don't. I have issues with her, and I don't care to say that publicly.
Yeah, that's true. Look, I think there's a lot of grifters out there. I think that she does a worse job than most of hiding how grifty it is. She doesn't care about any of this. She doesn't. It's all purely for the following, for the money.
That's it.
And now for the consequences. So the consequences are she can't get the test there. Now, here, let's have a little fun. If you were in charge of the testing clinic, would you test her?
I wouldn't if she refused to come in and follow our guidelines. I don't know if I necessarily personally would have sent her a letter like that, but I mean, I would have just kept it strict, just like anybody else. If you don't follow our guidelines, you can't get our test, and it's as simple as that.
That's interesting. Okay, well, let's say she does follow the guidelines. She wears a mask as she goes in. Would you not do it because she's undermining your work? She's making more people get sick. She doesn't seem to care what happens to people in healthcare and all that.
I don't know if I personally would take that same approach. I can't just say yes or no. I don't have a problem with the fact that she did that because it's her practice and she can do as she'd like. But as someone who owns a platform myself, there's a variety of different ways to go about sending a message. So she could have done it that way or perhaps a different way. So I think at the end of the day, though, she made a decent stand by saying, look, what you're doing is hurting my purpose and drive in life. I'm here to help keep people safe, and you're actively going against it. So I think that, her taking a stand, she took an opportunity to do something that's getting attention right now.
Yeah, I think, I do like the stand. I think if it was me, I would probably just do it, because she probably is at risk of giving other people COVID at all times. So, I want to make sure that she does that as little as possible. And also, she seems litigious. I don't want to be sued by Candance Owens. So I probably would just test her, I guess. I'd be frustrated by it because she's the worst, but yeah. Anyway, and just briefly, the right has blown up recently. They're gonna freak out about this today. Don't worry, Ben Shapiro's already readying a monologue, but they were already mad at Don Lemon because recently he said to some unvaccinated people that are now going to hospitals with COVID, he was doing a rant. You got to watch the rant to actually understand what he was saying and everything. Fox doesn't care about that, but he said, "Don't take up resources. That's how I feel, and I have no apologies." Which is obviously like, Don Lemon, I think, is lashing out emotionally there. What do you think about that? About him saying, like, if you haven't taken this seriously, you shouldn't be taking up hospital resources now?
Well, it's something nice to say, but it doesn't really change or add anything in reality. Like people are still gonna make their moves. And as someone, again, who gets that type of attention, I've just learned, like, the deeper I get into having a career at all, the more I realize that sometimes you just shouldn't say stuff. Not necessarily because you can't handle the heat, but the heat isn't always necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing, like, especially as I get deeper into politics, is if we can't find a way to connect, then there's never going to be any type of coming together. There's never gonna be any solutions. There's never, and as simple as that sounds, the longer I'm in politics, the more tired I get of the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that, while it may prove a point, it doesn't really do anything. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think I'm just like, my perspective on how to go about things is evolving as I get deeper into this space. But everything holds its necessary place. You know what I mean? You need a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Maybe some people find it cathartic to see people in the news sort of like lash out based on the whole thing. But yeah, I do. Sometimes I don't send tweets that I've typed out. It does happen from time to time.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
But again, it just everything serves its place. Sometimes people need to be fired up just so they can act, just so they can do. You know what I'm saying? But there's just a lot to the puzzle. It's a lot to the puzzle.
I don't even remember why. The one that I didn't end up sending, I don't remember the point I was trying to make, but it was something to the effect of, like, if next year there's a pandemic of like these contagious, deadly worms, the right is gonna be fighting to the death to not take dewormer. Like, it's all so contingent. Anyway, okay, we got one more story we get to very briefly. We're running low on time. I did want to read this message from Crazy Hawaiian in PA, who said, "Hey fam, remember, under the First Amendment, these people have a right to peacefully assemble. Unless there are indications that these groups intend to commit violence, they do have this right. I know it sucks, but if you want to express your right to free speech, you have to afford others the same right." And I don't know who, Marissa, I think, said, "Want to know your thoughts on this?" Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if they've been sending private messages that the FBI has that they're gonna blow up bombs, then yeah, stop the event. But otherwise, have security there, be ready, lock them up if they deserve it, but otherwise they get to assemble. Yeah.
As long as there's no ruckus, as long as people's peace isn't being disturbed and no violence, then it doesn't matter. But if you're announcing that you're gonna come with the ruckus, then there's plenty of no matter what your views are, if you're right wing, left wing, whatever, if you're there to cause trouble, then you shouldn't be there.
Totally. I just saw these messages from earlier. We had a sound issue. Calvinitis says motorcycle in living room. Sonic Boom said lawnmower in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's my good. The storm, I'm up here in Jersey, the gas got knocked out from the storm, so they out there fixing it and stuff. Actually moved, so it's quieter than it was.
Totally, yeah. No, we appreciate that. I totally understand. I've had that happen. My dog started barking during a video one time for no reason. Anyway, deal with it. Yeah. Okay, let's jump briefly into this story. There's been a lawsuit filed over the behavior of a set of cops in Beverly Hills. Wait until you hear the numbers in this. So nearly all of the people arrested by a task force of the Beverly Hills police over the past year were black. So what do they mean by that? Well, the complaint alleges that out of 106 people arrested, 105 were black. And the only other person was a dark-skinned Latino person. Between March of 2020 and July of 2021, the unit unjustly stopped and arrested black civilians who were roller skating, scootering, driving, and jaywalking a few feet outside the crosswalk, according to this suit, which was filed by Ben Crump earlier this week, representing a number of people who were arrested during this time. The unit, which is known as the Rodeo Drive Task Force, which is all that you needed to know that this was going to end up happening, by the way, was set up last year in response to, quote, a significant increase in calls for service in our business community, which is the only other thing you needed to know. But anyway, the city is one of the richest municipalities in the US, and it's less than 2% black. So it's weird, Jackson. It's less than 2% black, but virtually everyone they arrested was black. I'm not great at math. How does this add up?
Well, it doesn't. And simply put, has there ever been a greater example of profiling being part of the job? And I mean, there's been documentaries, I can't remember what it was, but police were on there like, yeah, it's part of the job. And if you're not profiling, you're kind of not doing your job, because that's what they're taught to do. Certain people cause problems, certain people have the drugs, certain people are the ones that you got to look out for. And especially too, like there really is something to be said. A 2% black community, you really do stick out like a sore thumb for people who are used to being in an environment where you are not. And so just your very presence can cause some uneasiness, and like you don't blend in. I mean, think about how the guy in Vegas, how he could shoot. How many people did he shoot? Like 500 or hundreds of people. He just went gun after gun after gun. And one thing my dad used to say all the time is, there's no better cover than being a white man. No one paid attention to him. He had these duffel bags full of, but again, that just kind of goes into human nature as well. Wherever there is a minority, there's going to be really bully-like treatment against it, because unfortunately that's part of our nature, and also why we have to manage and balance our nature through society.
You're right, and here you have what seems like businesses putting pressure on the cops to do even more of it. Like these are the business owners. They basically do not want black people in the area. That's what they want, and that's what they're gonna get. There's a long history everywhere of this sort of behavior. California is not immune to it. California is like more liberal in some ways, I guess. That does not mean that there are not tons of racist people, tons of racist cops.
Absolutely.
And by the way, we occasionally talk about like outsourcing here. The behavior that we're seeing from the cops is the rightful job of Karens and Kens. And the cops are stealing their jobs of harassing people on the streets. They should really be more understanding. But anyway, so this is a class action lawsuit. We're gonna see what happens really fast. The worst case I saw here, or one of the weirdest, was Vice President of Men's Footwear at Versace was walking around with a Versace shopping bag, was stopped and searched. And he's like, they're searching my bag. I designed those shoes, but they don't care. It's just profiling, that's all it is. Anyway, I wish that we had more time, but Jackson, it's been great to have you on. Really appreciate your contributions to the network and what you do at Politiscope. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh yeah, it was great, man. I had a great time. Looking forward to more.
Where can people see more of your content and follow what you do?
You can check it out on Rebel HQ on the TYT channel. I typically put out 4 to 5 videos a week on there, covering just a variety of things that are going on. I'll be on Indisputable tomorrow with Rashad Ritchie. I'll be on the Power Panel on the 17th. So every time I'm on, I'll do my best to provide good insight. And download Politiscope on iOS or Android. It's available. Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackson. Have a good day.
All right.
And for those of you at home, I got one more bit of homework for you. You got a couple minutes until Indisputable starts up, so definitely stick around for that. You can see Dr. Rashad Ritchie and you can hang out with Ben Carollo. But before that, go to the community tab at youtube.com/The Damage Report. Scroll the community tab and vote for the community garbage person of the week. Tomorrow, Brett and I will be breaking down our garbage people. We want to know who you think should be on that list. So you can go do that. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
Yep, welcome to Indisputable. Good to be with you. I'm your host, Rashad Richey. We got a lot on the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking down news of the day with me, none other than Ben Carollo, host of Galaxy Brain, and Bleep Blop Ben, writer and TYT contributor, will join us in just a minute. And then we have Ben Q. He was hilarious last time. I'm sure he will be equally as funny this time. We will talk about vaccine passports, booster shots, etc. All right, you don't want to miss that. My first story, ladies and gentlemen, a former Marine traveling and the police pull him over. This was in Nevada. They took $87,000 from him, even though he had committed no crime, was never charged for anything. This is a true story. Nevada trooper first told Stephen Lara the highway patrol was educating drivers, get this, about violations they may not realize they're committing. Okay, so that's the pretext to the stop. Hey, buddy, I'm pulling you over because we're involved in a massive educational campaign to just inform drivers of things they may not be aware of. Now that's a new one. You already know you're dealing with a really creative trooper here, right? It gets deeper. Eventually, the trooper did admit to having another purpose: stopping the smuggling of illegal drugs, weapons, and currency as they crossed the state. I have no problem with that. You're in pursuit of criminal activity. That's what you all do, okay? But that's not what they did. This former Marine, who says he was on his way to visit his daughters in Northern California, insisted he was doing none of those things. Though he readily admitted, ladies and gentlemen, that he did have a lot of cash in his car. Once again, not illegal. As he stood on the side of the road, police searched the vehicle, pulling nearly $87,000 in a zip-top bag from his trunk. He said he had a bunch of cash. He said he does not deal in narcotics. He is not a smuggler of any kind. He has cash, and he said, "You are free to check my vehicle." He told them, check it. Nothing illegal here. Going to see my daughter, Northern California, just passing through, okay? The police found no drugs. This gentleman was not charged with any crime, but police still took his damn money. Now, I'm scratching my head because I'm wondering, how in the hell can the police just take your money on the side of the road and let you keep driving with no charge whatsoever? No evidence of any criminal activity. They have not researched this individual and said, aha, tax evasion, we must seize the money. None of the above. Look at how they took the money. This is a real legal process that was reinstated by Jeff Sessions. Let's put up a picture of good old Jeff and his once buddy Donald Trump. Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump, two peas in a pod, right? The love affair ended. But when Trump appointed that character reinstated a program called adoptive forfeiture. Remember that terminology, adoptive forfeiture. It had been eliminated under the former Attorney General appointed by President Barack Obama, Eric Holder. Holder said, this is a ridiculous rule. I'm getting rid of it. Jeff Sessions gets appointed, he puts it right back in there, okay? So they found no drugs, nothing. So what did the cop do? The cop decided to call the DEA. No drugs here. The cop called the DEA a federal agent, and the federal agent coordinated something called an adoption, which allows federal authorities to seize cash or property they suspect is connected to criminal activity without levying criminal charges. Wow. You can just say, hey, I think you sell dope. So because I have an opinion that you sell dope, I'm going to just take your money and I can seize your property. It's called adoptive forfeiture. We could just do that because we feel like it. And the way the rule works, they could keep your money forever until you file the proper paperwork to get it back. Damn. Only in America, ladies and gentlemen. So here's what the victim of these cops said. I left there confused. I was angry. And I could not believe that I had just literally been robbed on the side of the road by people with badges and guns. Let's put up a picture of this victim. Now, I want to remind you, he was just passing through. He was going up to California to meet his daughter. Come to find out, ladies and gentlemen, he had a perfectly good reason for having that amount of cash. He didn't trust banks. He was making a large payment that he was responsible to make. He was making that payment directly in the state of California. It was only after he got a lawyer, sued, and talked to the Washington Post about his ordeal that the government said they would return his money. He had to get a lawyer, he had to get the media involved, and then all of a sudden, magically, his money reappears. Okay, they give him his money back. The DEA spokeswoman, Ann Edgecombe, said the agency had made a decision to return the money, and the Justice Department spokesman, Joshua Steve, said the government is, and I quote, reviewing existing policy on adoptive forfeitures. Who's in charge of the DEA right now? This young lady, Miss Ann Milgram. Very smart woman, brilliant. University lecturer. A lot of people had high hopes about her appointment. Miss Ann, you need to get on your damn job. Ben, hell of a story. They took the man's money, no criminal activity whatsoever, and he had to fight in order to get it back. Wow, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot to this. I mean, the first thing that I'm thinking of is, I mean, like for most of us working class folks, I think we all probably have like an uncle that like doesn't trust banks or whatever. Yep. That likes to operate in cash, and it's like I feel like it's a pretty common thing among like working class Americans that at least one family member is like, I don't trust banks, whatever, and so they keep cash with them, and maybe they want to buy a car for their kids, maybe they want to put a down payment on a house, maybe they want to do whatever, and this is a policy that I think one of the reasons why it's been in place for so long and why there's always this sort of like flip-flopping from one administration to another instead of like long-term legislation is because it's kind of only like a working class issue, right? Like, Jeff Bezos isn't running around with $87,000 in his backpack, right? He's got like, billions of dollars in random like accounts and stuff like that. It's not like physical cash that he's carrying around. Working class people carry around cash. And so this type of like getting pulled over by police and getting this money, it's just got like wild west vibes where, like the, corrupt sheriff pulls you over and, asks you for protection money, basically.
Yeah, and remember, all of this was done on the side of the road. I'm completely convinced that this state trooper knew the DEA agent who would do all of this within a few minutes or maybe an hour on the side of the road to take away someone's money, and you have no evidence that they are a criminal. You can't even arrest them. He gets to drive away robbed, but he gets to keep going. His money obviously was returned. Now they are reviewing the policy. And the current attorney general, as well as the DEA administrator, they need to get on their job. To their credit, they have reversed a significant number of Trump era policies as it relates to the DOJ and the DEA, but they have not done enough, all right? Let me go to the next story. This story is very tough for me. I covered this extensively in 2019 when it happened. You're talking about a very gentle soul named Elijah McClain. Elijah McClain, who was 23 years of age at the time, was murdered. I called it a murder from day one. He wasn't just murdered by the police. He was also murdered by the paramedics. They are responsible for his death. The district attorney of that local jurisdiction came out and said, nothing to see here. There's no criminal activity. Let's put up a picture of Elijah McClain again. Self-taught violinist, individual, was a remarkable soul. Put up a picture of him in the hospital before he died. Okay? What was his crime? Trying to get a soda, trying to get a drink, going to a store, okay? He was anemic, it was cold, so he wore his ski mask, okay? Wasn't violent, everybody locally knew him. The 911 operator that called 911 said, I don't think he's dangerous. That did not get relayed to the police. Now, once again, if you call the cops to a situation, you are calling a gun. Just don't forget that, all right? Let me give you some more background to this. 3 officers and 2 paramedics have been indicted by a Colorado grand jury in the 2019 death of Elijah McClain. The Attorney General, Phil Weiser, the special prosecutor in the case, announced the 32-count indictment on Wednesday. The grand jury reportedly made their decision last Thursday. We did not know about it until recently. The office of the AG decided to delay the public announcement to make sure they could inform the McClain family first. Let's put up the officers, the cops who were involved in the murder of Elijah McClain. 2 of them were still current. 2 of them were still active with the Aurora Police Department in Colorado. Randy Rodema, Nathan Woodyard, and Jason Rosenblatt. There they go. Those are the 3 officers who were involved. Let's go to the 2 paramedics. Now remember, the officers put a chokehold on this kid, and that chokehold has now been deemed illegal in that department, okay? They can no longer use it, but they use it on this kid. The paramedics are the ones who administered the drug that worked hand and glove in order to kill Elijah McClain. It was a combination of the sedative, which by the way, he never should have been sedated. He was not a threat, not committing a criminal act, none of the above. And he's dead. The cops and the paramedics, they are facing a slew of charges, including manslaughter. McClain had gone into cardiac arrest en route to the hospital. He was declared brain dead August 27th of that year in 2019. And then on August 30th, he was taken off of life support and he passed to the other side. According to the New York Times, the 5 defendants involved in this death just east of Denver will face 1 charge of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide, as well as a variety of assault charges. Last count, I counted 32 actual charges between these 5 men. 32 charges came from this one jury, and more charges may come. Now, leadership really matters because remember, the district attorney said nothing to see here. The DA said there is no crime here. But a grand jury said, you're right, there is not 1 crime, it's actually 32. 32. Shortly after the indictments were announced, the Aurora Police Association put out a statement doing what? What they do best, defending the killers, officers, and saying there was no evidence the officers caused Mr. McClain's death. Damn liars, all of them, all of them. The independent review of Mr. McClain's death released this February issued a scathing catalog of errors committed by the officers and paramedics during the encounter and in the investigation that followed. I want to take you to what was the incident, okay? The officers grabbed Mr. McClain's arms, pushed him against a wall, pulled him to the ground. They used what's called a whatever hold to subdue Mr. McClain. A potentially dangerous restraint to the neck restricts the blood to the brain, carotid. That has now been deemed illegal. The carotid hold is no longer permissible. Cops are still cops. They can still do their jobs without killing people. It's possible. Ben, I'm sure you remember this story, man. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say. I mean, first and foremost, there's the problematic relationship between DAs around the country and police departments, where they tend to be really buddy-buddy with each other, and they tend to get each other's backs in a way that is very, very problematic, because it leads to covering up for crimes that are committed by police officers. And then there's this growing trend of police officers around the country basically telling paramedics to administer like sedatives to people, and they don't know their medical history. They're not pulling up backgrounds on them. They don't know if they're anemic, if they're allergic to particular drugs, if there's any of a litany of potential side effects that they could have that could potentially be deadly, especially with things like sedatives like that. And it's just very, very problematic, where these police officers feel like they have this sort of universal authority to tell anyone around them what to do, and when that goes unquestioned, it leads to a lot of innocent death. And then the fact that they feel, like there should be no recourse, it just puts us in this terrible situation where it's rare that these police officers are even being charged.
Yeah, and I want to say this about the person who called 911, because I know that whoever called 911, your family and your friends are telling you it's not your fault. They're lying to you. This is partly your fault. And let me explain why I say that. You said in the 911 call, I do not think he is dangerous. 911 is for emergencies, okay? That kid was one of the most gentle beings on this planet. There are commentaries and documentaries about Elijah McClain, his brilliance, how gentle he was, how he wanted to bring people together, saw the best in everybody. Just a remarkable human being, remarkable. He didn't deserve to die, we all know that. But when you call a gun to a situation that you claim is not dangerous, these things can happen, all right? I'm not saying don't call 911. I'm saying use the number for the emergency that you believe is actually happening, all right? We're gonna follow this, and we'll give you the updates as the trial progresses, as soon as those dates are set. We got more on the other side. Stick and stay, it's indisputable.
Magic, it's showtime, and say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, Jerry, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right, a few years ago, when I realized that I was gonna have to wear makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. Do you guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. At least I do. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial how to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw. All hands. Pick up a couple streaks. This is the guy we're putting on makeup. We got dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all all shiny, people get on you for it. They'll say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
This isn't Anderson Cooper. If you say some BS, I'm not simply going to let it slide and then move on to the next thing.
This is what the establishment does not understand about politics. You can change the conversation.
This is my place in that broader revolution.
We first have to fight to prove that we are human. We then have to fight for our freedom. Then we fight for our equality. And now we are fighting for our survival because your militarized police force thinks it's okay to shoot us at any point in time.
Look at what's happening in society today, and it's hard not to think about what was going on in the 50s and 60s.
We're all out here. Everybody that cares about where this country's going, we're out here.
We are going to win this fight. We are going to transform this country.
Whoever wins this primary wins the seat.
We just took down one of the top establishment Democrats in the country.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley.
This is the beginning.
Oh my God, I got you in the
Best moment of my life, I guess, would have to be when the kid was born. Like, because suddenly that meant I served my purpose. Very close second, the day we sold Clerks. That changed my life. In fact, Harley wouldn't have been born if I hadn't sold Clerks. So that noise. Clerks, probably the biggest day, best day of my life. It led to everything else. I got the wife and the kid because Clerks happened. So don't tell the kid, but Clerks.
Our teachers are suffering, and we won't even cut 10% of the money going to military contract.
The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities.
A tiny sliver of the defense budget would pay for 395,000 teachers.
We're talking about the future of the country. We're talking about the nation's youth and making sure that we are competitive globally. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we provide quality education for our young people.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot on the agenda for the show, so, buckle up. Let me read some of these viewer comments. Don't forget, after Indisputable, catch Reactions with Ray Vanna, all right? That's 4 p.m. Eastern time, okay? Make that happen. You can also tune in on twitch.tv/TYT, all right? And don't forget to watch The Conversation. The big homie, David Schuster, will host 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, tyt.com/live. That comes on before the Young Turks. And make sure you subscribe, all right? youtube.com/TYT conversation. Make that happen. Let me go to the members' comments first. I'm a damn lib says, search and seizure it is a cash cow for Nevada. They are famous for taking cars and cash. Wow, good to know. Fab 4. Looks like those cops who use the excuse of educating drivers to illegally steal $87,000 need to get schooled by Dr. Ritchie. They do, they really do need to take one of my classes. I would highly recommend it. My poet, Kelly O'Hara says, these cops are criminals committing such theft. No standards, they're completely bereft. What an SAT word. You get 10 extra points. Bereft means lacking. They're completely bereft. They should lose their jobs. Their corruption abounds. Sue them all down into the ground. Ours. Wonderful. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon. Of the many murders by cops, Elijah McClain and Tamir Rice were the most heartbreaking. The statement put out by the police department claiming that it was not the fault of the cops was one of the most disgusting I've ever seen. Yeah, agreed. Worst case scenario, Dragon says, Elijah used to play his violin. Give me a second, because that gets you right there. This young man was so nice, and I remember the video of him playing his violin at animal shelters to try to make the cats and dogs feel better. That's the kind of soul he was, right? YouTube super chat. Tyler Hackner, love this show. Well, we love you for loving the show. Thank you. Jim Adelberg, nice tie. Thank you. I appreciate you noticing. Catherine Wood, thank you so much. Tier 1. Mr. Is it Jai Goons, Jai Peasy? Keep up the good work. Keep knocking them out with indisputable truth. Thank you. And it's no mistake that they came through like bandits to rob that man of his money. I am blind and can see that. Wow. Yep. Tyler Hackner, justice for Elijah. That's right. And Tyler also says, let's be honest, true justice would be Elijah being here on this earth. Agreed. Trevor Watson, but he was guilty of being black and breathing. That's about all it takes. Twitch, Resto Dragon. Ketamine should never be administered in the field to control a person being arrested, ever. It should only be administered by a qualified medical provider for legitimate medical reasons. Source, me, 30 years of practice in cardiothoracic surgery. That's fancy, but thank you for that insight. Jess Peachy _TW, adoptive forfeiture, AKA sad day for you. Yeah, no kidding. That man had to go all the way to California, $87,000 lighter because of a damn traffic stop. Wow. Okay, this may need to be a public service announcement, okay? White people, I don't give a damn who you are, Dog the Bounty Hunter, whoever else, you do not have a pass to say the N-word. Now, I'm surprised that Dog the Bounty Hunter is still on TV of any sort, but this guy is still out there. He did an interview. His daughter accuses him of being racist. He's been accused of being racist for a very long time. As a matter of fact, there was a phone call where it was between him and his son. He was talking about, I think, the son's girlfriend at the time, and he was using the N-word over and over again. But Dog the Bounty Hunter has a reason why he says the N-word, and here it is.
22-year-old Bonnie also claims she was not invited to her dad's wedding because she supports the Black Lives Matter movement.
Do you support that organization?
Yes, I do. I have never been a racist. I'm 33.5% Apache. But because of over 15 years ago, I have an Achilles heel because I used the wrong word.
Well, let me ask you about that. That moment 15 years ago.
Yes, sir.
That phone call with your son.
Correct.
You were using language, and over 6 times during that call, you used the N-word.
Yes, sir.
Why were you using that word so freely?
Well, I thought I had a pass in the black tribe to use it, kind of like Eminem.
Who gave you the pass?
The brothers.
Who were the brothers?
I had just, gotten out of prison in 1979 after spending time in 18 months in Texas, and it was probably 3/4 from the black tribe. So that was a word that we used back and forth as maybe a compliment. My pass expired for using it, but no one told me that. To say a racist name doesn't qualify to make you a racist.
If you use that word, use that word and you use it in your regular everyday life, it makes you a racist.
I have more black friends than Eminem.
That is the proximity argument. Like, I have lots of black friends, so that should make me okay with black people.
Okay, listen. Calm down, everybody. Okay? Dog the Bounty Hunter is racist as hell. Let me make sure I say that for the record. He referenced Eminem twice. He said he uses the N-word kind of like Eminem. Eminem doesn't do that, okay? He just assumes he does that because Eminem is a white rapper. So naturally to Dog the Bounty Hunter, Eminem says the N-word because he's a rapper. Number one. Number two, he has more black friends than Eminem. What? Wait a minute. I don't know how many black friends Eminem has. Do you? But for some reason, that is his proximity to not being racist. Now, let's follow the logic here, because this is really the first time I've heard this argument. I've heard people say, I have black friends, but I have never heard somebody try to dissuade an individual from an argument about racism based on the amount of black friends another white person has. This is insane to me. Now, he also says that he was given a pass. Listen, before the show today, I decided to consult with the black delegation. And the black delegation has thoroughly informed me that no one in prison or out of prison has ever given Dog the Bounty Hunter a pass to use the N-word. And let's be clear, Dog the Bounty Hunter went hard ER in a derogatory way. And let's go back to that infamous phone call. Now you tell me, does this sound like a term of endearment to you? Here it is.
I'm not taking a chance on some, I don't care if she's a Mexican, a whore, whatever. It's not because she's black. It's because we use the word sometimes here. I'm not gonna take a chance ever in life of losing everything I've worked for 30 years because some heard us say and turned us into the Inquirer magazine. Our career is over. I'm not taking that chance at all. Never in life. Never. Never. If Leach was dating, we would all say you. And you know that. And it's not that they're black. It's none of that. It's that we use the word. We don't mean you scum out of soul. We don't mean that. But America would think we mean that. And we're not taking a chance on losing everything we got over a racial slur.
Dog, all you have to do is stop saying it. You have a multi-million-dollar contract that you lost with A&E because you couldn't just say, you know what, y'all, we're gonna have to stop saying the N-word around here. I know. But hey, if multiple millions of dollars will not stop your racist ass from saying the N-word, especially around other black folks, because you're saying, listen, she comes to the house, she gonna hear this N-word. And we can't lose everything because of that. Sir, you are in fact a racist, sir, okay? Please believe it. Ben, am I out of line here?
I don't know why so many people, like there's so many white people out there that like try to like orchestrate some sort of weird, fantastical scenario in which it would be appropriate. It's never appropriate, never at all. And like, if his daughter is saying he's racist, right? Like, look, anybody, if your daughter says you are racist, whoever you are watching this, you might be racist and you should probably evaluate your actions. It's also, I think, important to tie it into, I mean, his whole television show was about being a bail bondsman, and the whole right bail system, the whole bail system in the United States itself is like designed to specifically, especially target people of color in the United States. Right. And it's like he not only was racist in the individual personalized sense, but he was also literally profiting off of a systemically racist system and doing it on television, doing propaganda for that system.
Yeah, and basically chasing brown and black people is what his job was, right? And then he would do the TV thing where he'll give them a Newport cigarette and give them some kind of inspirational quote before putting them in jail. The hell up out of here. Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
I feel free. Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Excuse me, sir, you can't touch this.
What's that?
You can't touch this.
Well, then get the thing running. My wife cannot be without air conditioning.
You're breaking the law right now.
I don't give a. Get this thing running.
You're breaking the law right now.
I don't care.
You should relax.
I should relax?
Yeah,
you want me to rip a battery out of your car so you can sit in the heat?
Is that what you want to do?
I will. I will.
Hey.
Just go ahead. You video me. I don't give a.
Of course. Look how you're acting.
Yeah. So get this thing running.
Get
it running. You got 10 minutes.
No.
You got 10 minutes.
Do you want a number?
I called this number.
No, there's a number that you don't have. Do you want it?
Yes, I do.
Well, calm down so I can give it to you.
Give it to me.
You know, you're out here drinking and stuff. Just relax.
It's my day off. I drink all the time.
Okay, can I give you the number?
Yes.
If you relax, I won't mind giving you the number.
Give me the number.
Thank you. Let me turn this off.
he really wanted that number because when the guy says, if you relax, I give you the number. He went from 100 to about 20, right? Okay, give me the number. I know some of you are looking at this guy's remarkable physique. Let me say this. I wish I had this kind of confidence in my life, okay? He didn't give two F's about whatever. It was his day off, he had his beer, and it was hot. I just don't understand why break the law? Why mess with this device that may not be working properly? Why start breaking the law and then going off on the person who's actually a professional? That's not going to speed things up for you here. Call the damn number, complain to customer service. Yeah. Ben, thoughts?
I mean, like, I just can't believe that the guy on the other side of the camera being so unbelievably patient. Like he's like, look, buddy, I'm trying to help you. Just let me give you a phone number of somebody that you can call, right? Like, but he's like, that guy's just at an 11, right? And like, I get it, it's hot, right? And you're concerned about your wife and it's like 1,000,000 degrees. And if you don't have air conditioning, that's very, very upsetting. But like, you're asking somebody to go out and work in that heat, right? So if it's too hot for you, like, just understand. I mean, it kind of ties into the people who are calling DoorDash in the middle of the flooding in New York right now. It's like, you just have no awareness that other people around them also have to deal with the same problems that they're dealing with, especially when it comes to the weather.
Yeah, I really love the spirit, the customer service sentiment of this individual recording, because he wasn't a pushover, but at the same time, he was very assertive here, right? But he remained calm. He tried to be give instruction. He tried to be helpful, even in the midst of that situation. And I have to imagine that if it's hot for everybody. It's hot for the guy outside. He's irritated too. He's not in the AC. You're not calling him in an office. It's hot. It's just hot for everyone. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
we'll see. Poor
Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? So now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me to Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby.
You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute.
I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip into Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire.
Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show. Let's get to it. TYT member Cray Cray Souffle says, curious, Dr. Richey, what is that pin you wear on your lapel daily? Well, this one is Beulah Heights University, one of the colleges that I teach at. I'm a department chair at that university. So typically, when you see me with the lapel pin, I lecture at 3 area colleges. It's one of those colleges, or it's one of the labor unions that I love so much, okay? Organized labor. All right, Rob, Coors seems to be the beer of choice among male Karens. I'm noticing that trend too. I need more scientific research before making a conclusion, but I understand what you mean. YouTube super chat, George Krukowski. Stop making me cry. I saw the videos. Love all. All right, thank you. Trevor Watson, in New Zealand, we respect a good man who speaks the truth. Thank you. My pleasure. Mike V, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? I know, what was his fixation with Eminem? I don't get that. I mean, did he go to the interview with his interview notes and say, all right, when he says this, I'm going to say Eminem. When he asks this, I'm going to respond, Eminem. Songs of Sovereignty, dog hates Hawaiians too. So glad he's gone. Jeffrey Ritchie, maybe dogs black like hair fondling Carrie. Because of middle school, right. Mr. Jai Goons, Jai Peasy. I always thought that guy was racist, a racist bigot who just so happened to land a job on television as a bail bondsman. I think that's right. Also, Mr. Peasy. I listen to Eminem all the time, and I've never heard any songs where he uses the N-word, correct. And I rock with E myself. Never heard him say the N-word. Frank Jackson, welcome to Tier 1, thank you. Twitch, Insomnia Noor. Hi, hey, Dr. Richey, I hope you got my email yesterday and it was of some help. I did, and thank you for that. Mike Boy Raps, it's my day off, I drink all the time. Reminds me of Rudy saying, I don't have a drinking problem, I'm high functioning. High functioning what, Rudy? Top cat _ Glass Dragon. His wife was so mean to him, so he went out to be mean to others. Yeah, that's probably exactly what happened. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, very sad story here. No charges for a cop who fatally shot Joshua Feast in the back. In the back, ladies and gentlemen, despite police caught lying on their reports, and the officer who was involved, the key player, has a violent past in his record. This is a story of Mr. Feast, 22 years of age, black male, fatally shot by Lamarck, Texas, a police officer, Jose Santos. This was back December 9th, 2020, okay? It ended the way most of these stories end. Cop commits an insane act against a citizen and is then justified, exonerated, not held accountable. A grand jury elected not to take any action against Santos after an independent investigation conducted by the Galveston County Sheriff's Office and the County Criminal District Attorney's Office. What? Yeah, them. They're buddies. Feast was a person of interest in an ongoing investigation into recent shootings in the city of Lamarck. And according to police, he had 2 outstanding felony warrants, including felony in possession of a firearm and felony evading arrest. Now let me pause there because people will use that to justify being shot in the back. I don't give a damn what he is suspected of. I do not care that he was under investigation. I don't. You see, due process is due process for this very reason. Because cops cannot be investigator, accuser, and then the one who carries out the extermination of the life. No, because that eliminates due process. And amazingly, it's people that say they believe in the Constitution are the ones who will say this guy got what he deserved, even though clearly he should be alive. Everybody that deserves to meet a judge does not deserve to meet a maker, okay? That's how this should work. Due process should absolutely be applied to everybody. All right, but the camera footage released about 2 weeks after the shooting proved major contradictions between what happened and what was in writing by the police, okay? Let's go to the video. Here it is. Okay, this is muted because the cop intentionally muted the sound. Just so you know in the beginning.
1,000 block of Purtle, 1,000 block of Purtle, send me units now. Show me your hands, show me your hands, show me your hands. Help me. 41, we're in front of 1010 Purtle. Stage medics. First unit to get here, I need you to recover the gun. He dropped it just outside of Dodge Charger.
Yeah, okay. Officials claim that Feast not only pointed a gun at police, but that he actually fired at them before he was shot in the back. But nothing in the video indicates that ever happened. Investigators also said Santos identified himself to Feast and observed that he saw the gun he was allegedly holding before firing at him. But that can't be heard in the video for reasons the city officials explained, saying the first 30 seconds of the video have no sound because when Axon cameras are turned on, the system goes into buffering mode for 30 seconds, which is bull. Let's put up a picture of this young man who was shot in the back by those who are sworn to protect and serve. Now let's put up a picture of Officer Jose Santos being awarded honored distinction. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who was representing the Feast family, pointed to Santos' violent and past and wondered why he was even still allowed to be a police officer. Santos has been involved with at least one other incident of brutalizing a black young man. As it goes, most of these cats that end up making the media, they already have a history, a background. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to disconnect this from the person that was actually killed, because whenever whenever police officers kill somebody in the United States, there's always this trial of the person who lost their life. And it's always this like, oh, well, do they have a warrant? Do they have this, that, or the other thing? I mean, the story we covered earlier, literally they killed a child who was like saintly. I mean, to use that term, like, pretty much saintly in nature. And that's probably what led to those charges eventually happening, right? It's just the sort of spotless record of the person. And so what is undoubtedly happening is there's probably some sort of conversation between like the DA and the police officers basically saying, oh, is this life worth somebody's career? And they literally are just arguing about what your life is worth. And like anybody that's killed by a police officer is under the law by definition innocent, because you're innocent until a judge and a jury finds you guilty, right? So I don't care about warrants or anything like that. Except for the people who are making decisions about what counts as justified killing of a random person. They care, and that's what they're weighing, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and think about the irony here. It is clear that the police reports are contrary to the facts. Okay, now the grand jury, they don't charge this cop or anybody with manslaughter, murder, criminally negligent homicide. But think about it. It's a violation of your oath to lie on a police report. You literally lied on an official document, and there is no penalty for you whatsoever. You are an executive in law enforcement. You carry out the enforcement of laws, but you don't love the laws you enforce. You don't follow the laws you enforce. You don't really respect the law, is my point. All you're doing is utilizing the law as a pretext to get away with criminality yourself. Okay, unrelated news. This is happening more and more. COVID idiot, I'm going to call this person, flew to Hawaii with a fake vaccination card. Now, when I tell you how they got caught, they deserve to get caught, okay? 24-year-old woman from Illinois, her name is Chloe Rozak, was arrested in Hawaii for allegedly using a fake vaccination card to enter the state. The major red flag was the fact that they misspelled Moderna. I mean, damn, do you have Google? They misspelled it. Okay, that raised a red flag. You think that would raise a red flag? Yeah, kind of an important detail. This is Chloe. That's from the Hawaii Department of Public Safety. And let's put up the COVID-19 vaccination card. I mean, it looks really freaking official. Okay, until you look at the spelling of the word Moderna. So let's do this for everybody. Again, the correct spelling of Moderna is M-O-D-E-R-N-A. They spelled it M-A-D-E-R-N-A. Now, I don't know if she did this for herself or maybe she hired somebody to do it. But ma'am, I really do hope you get a refund here, okay? They may even be responsible for your bail money. I know if this was me, you would have to pay my bail money, everything else, all right? Okay, but it wouldn't be me because I wouldn't do anything that crazy. This is according to Hawaii News Now. State investigators said they received a tip that 24-year-old Chloe Rozak of Oak Lawn, Illinois, may have uploaded the false documents under the state's Safe Travels program to bypass traveler quarantine rules. That's according to Hawaii News Now. Rozak arrived on Oahu last week, Monday, on a Southwest flight. Upon travel, she left the airport before her hotel reservations were confirmed by screeners. Documents show that she listed a Holiday Inn Express in Waikiki as her place of stay. Investigators checked with the hotel and they said there were no reservations under her name. As Rozak went about her trip in Oahu, investigators were gathering details over the alleged fake vaccine card. The handwritten card listed Delaware as the location of the vaccination. It claimed members of the National Guard, there administered the shot. But when authorities checked her medical records with the state, there was no trace of her vaccination. Investigators tracked her down when she returned to the airport for her departure flight on Saturday. She was arrested and uttered to the officer that she got her vaccination from her doctor at a doctor's office and paid for the shot, documents say. That is allegedly untrue based on the allegation. This is her bail. Her bail is $2,000. But why? Why are people doing this? This is getting extreme. We reported on the story yesterday of a scheme that sold 250 fake cards to healthcare workers. Now, these people are going back into the field. They have a position of public trust. And if I'm in a hospital or if I check one of my loved ones into a hospital, I need to know that they're not going to be adversely impacted by the damn medical staff. Ben, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, like, the reason why Hawaii is taking this so seriously is because Hawaii is an island, right? There are a bunch of islands. It takes a long time. If their hospitals fill up, it takes a long time to move patients somewhere else. So they have limited resources. They don't have the same access to like nearby hospitals to move people to if it starts, sort of exploding in terms of case numbers. So yeah, and in a small island like that, people are bumping into each other all the time. It's like a vacation touristy spot. So they deal with like a lot of COVID circulating and they're trying to take it seriously. And these people think that their vacation is more important than people's lives to the point where they're literally willing to apparently commit fraud in order to do that. I mean, if you want a sunny vacation, why are you going to Florida or why are you going to Hawaii anyway, right? Like if you're an anti-vaxxer and you don't want to deal with vaccination protocols, I mean, you can go to Florida where, they're taking all that horse paste instead of, getting vaccinated. Instead of like going and threatening Hawaii where they've got more limited resources, it's just unbelievably selfish.
Yeah, very well said, brother. As always, my friend, a pleasure to have you on the show. How can people follow you, check out your work?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, it's Benjamin Carollo on Twitter. Yeah, you can catch my show Galaxy Brain, which is going to be on the Twitch tomorrow on the Young Turks Twitch channel at 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Thank you so much, my friend. Always. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching me via streaming linear TV, this ends our back and forth. But you can jump on to the Indisputable TYT page on YouTube and check out the next segment, which is The Bullpen, where I debate individuals based on various ideology. All right, we got more. Stick and stay.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in it.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, believing that it was actual berries.
Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There's only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I have seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he was the original Bernie Sanders. If you want to know how we're going to win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com.
We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot. Don't forget, after Indisputable, Ray Actions with Rayvana, 4 p.m. Okay, make that happen. 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. Tune into twitch.tv/TYT and watch the conversation today live, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, TYT.com/live. That's right before the Young Turks, okay? My big homie David Schuster will host. You can also subscribe, watch all of the interviews, great content. Watch all of the interviews at youtube.com/TYT conversation. Let me read some of these amazing comments. TYT member Fab4 says, he's not just teaching at 3 colleges, but he's a department chair too, while hosting a show 5 days a week. Dr. Richie is even more amazing than I thought. Well, thank you so much for that. And you're amazing too, Fab4. Appreciate you. Mickey C, the Silverhaired Dragon. He had 2 warrants, so the cop can be the judge, jury, and executioner. It's not how it should work, exactly. Spicy dragon wings. Body cams have a continually running 30-second buffer that preserves the 30 seconds before recording is enabled. It doesn't mute audio. It makes sure that even if the camera is turned on late, the prior recording is captured from 30 seconds prior. This is how that cop who planted drugs in a bust, pawned himself. He turned his body camera on to say, oh my, look at what I just found, without realizing he recorded himself planting the drugs 30 seconds earlier. What a tool. YouTube super chat. Tyler Hackner, they choose to take innocent life. Yep. Tyler also says too many COVID idiots out there. Agreed. Trevor Watson, look at NZ1 came in now. We have over 250 people. NZ is too small to lose. COVID-19 is no joke. Rathner Slayer, Dragon of the North Wind, us Hawaiians, Kanaka, are used to idiots bringing foreign disease to our shores. History repeating itself, more dead natives. That's a very good point. Raja Harris, Moderna family reunion. I like the dancing people. That's cute. Jax Drax. Police always release the info that they will use against their victim, but will fight tooth and nail to not have their body cam footage released to the public. Agreed. Fat guy named Tiny. These people getting the fake Vax cards are the same type of people that lose their minds about undocumented immigrants doing the same thing to get jobs to support their families. You are absolutely, what a great point. Absolutely correct. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we got Ben Q, columnist and English editor at El American. Good day, Ben, welcome.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Glad to have you back. All right, let's get right into it. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about vaccination mandates or even mask mandates and protocols. So give us your sentiment as it relates to those items.
Well, okay. I mean, if we start with the vaccine issue, I think that the fundamental problem you've got there is that, well, as well as being what I consider to be a fundamental violation of civil liberties, the issue with the vaccine passports or mandates or whatever is that they're fundamentally separating society between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And we know that 30%, I don't know the exact figures actually, I should have looked them up, but about 20 to 30, even 40, I'm not sure, % of the American population has not been vaccinated, and a large percentage of them are absolutely resolute in the fact that they will never get vaccinated. So if you're an unvaccinated person living in, say, New York, and as someone who's interested in issues of racial justice, a large proportion of Black and Hispanic and even low-income communities are those who have not been vaccinated. What you're effectively doing is you're creating a sort of second-class citizen. So you can't go to a restaurant, you can't get on a flight, you can't go into private, you can't go into shops. There's all kinds of things that, in New York that they are now imposing. And I think that basically it's, as I said, it's creating two tiers of citizenship, one for the vaccinated and another for the unvaccinated. And I think that, if we were talking about the Black Death or something absolutely lethal, then this might be a different conversation. But given that there are very real concerns about the vaccine, and whether you believe them or not, I think they're justified. The pace of the rollout, the time in which it was developed, the reported side effects that people are having. I don't think people who don't want to get vaccinated and who take that personal choice, not to get themselves vaccinated and their families, should be basically treated like second-class citizens. That is my ultimate feeling on the issue.
All right, glad to have your feeling. So let me give you some fact here. You are incorrect about Black people and vaccinations. The #1 demographic and this is in Business Insider, you can check out my data. The number one demographic who are never vaxxers or say they will never be vaccinated are actually white males, okay? White males are your number one demographic in that arena. Vaccination mandates, you have a problem with them fundamentally based on a civil liberty. Well, let me be very clear. Vaccination mandates have been around, not only the United States of America, but on the planet for many, many decades. For example, in all 50 states in the United States of America, even though there was no federal mandate for vaccinations, in every single state in the US, there is a state mandate for vaccinations. Every single school system has a state mandate. For places like California and Texas, they require a couple of more than places like Texas and Georgia. But every single state, conservative, liberal, Republican, sir, I allowed you, sir, in all due respect, I allowed you to finish all of your commentary before I responded. In every single state, there is already a mandate for vaccinations based on the safety protocol of that particular school system. Also, immigration officials have routinely required proof of vaccinations. Ellis Island, New York, Angel Island, San Francisco, and other places, they have had these vaccination mandates in for a very long time based on what's germane to that local area. Those are your mandates. Your mandates also extend to companies like Delta and Uber and other companies that say in order to continue to operate at certain levels at this agency, you will need to have certain vaccinations. We're talking about pre-COVID, by the way. And if you want to travel abroad, there are vaccination requirements as well. These vaccination requirements have been around for decades also. From diphtheria, tetanus, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis B, hepatitis A, tuberculosis. The list goes on and on. The US military has to engage in the same activity. They are required by their mandate to receive certain vaccinations. Some have to receive over 20, depending on their deployment. My overall point to you is this. You all are completely antithetical to the notion of COVID-19 mandates, which by the way, there is no mandate through the federal government for everyday citizens, and there's no mandate for a statewide compliance. But for some reason, I don't hear you all having the same intellectual argument as it relates to the well over 20 vaccination mandates that are already required by actual law.
Okay, so let me just take you up on a few points there. I mean, I think that you're probably broadly right in that, these vaccinations that have been extremely well established, like, you say measles, or I can't remember the other ones, but those are proven vaccines, and I completely, I think they're a different conversation ultimately, because the reason that people are so skeptical about this COVID vaccine is because of the pace of the rollout. And people feel that, those vaccines that you referenced before have taken decades and, decades in the making of absolutely rigorous testing. So that's my first point. My second point would be that how many times can you honestly say in your life that you have been asked to provide proof of vaccination for anything? Now, I'm sure you have got vaccinated, and I'm sure it's happened on occasion. But have you ever been on a flight before, or gone into a restaurant, or tried to buy something, and someone has asked you for a piece of paper to prove that you've been vaccinated? It may have happened, but I don't think it's something that's happened regularly in your life, because that is not society. That is not something that society is accustomed to. I've never been asked in my entire life for proof of vaccination to board a flight or to eat in a restaurant, or whatever it might be. So that would be my contention to you. Those vaccines might be mandated, but there's very little evidence of that in everyday life. And the difference is this COVID vaccine is that they intend to basically impose it everywhere. In fact, that is what they are doing in the state of New York.
Okay, so let me respond to your question directly to me. So the answer is yes, I have provided a passport, a vaccine passport, to not only be a student in a school, but to also be a teacher in that school. We have to have certain vaccinations even filed at colleges, private and public. So this goes from K through 12 education to college life. Literally, virtually, every single American has had to present a vaccination passport at some point. And every single American virtually has had to receive a mandated vaccination. The reason why I brought that to your attention is because you said that your issue with this was based on, and I quote, a violation of civil liberties. Well, if it is a violation of civil liberties, then the argument that the drug or the vaccine is new, that's not an argument, because it's not about the vaccine, it's about the violation of civil liberties. And if that is your premise, Ben, if your premise is this mandate, vaccine mandates are a violation of my civil liberties, then that means that every other mandate for vaccinations should also be a violation of civil liberties as well. My question to you, based on that linear logic, why have you not made contention with these other dynamics of the violation, as you put it, and you only call COVID-19 vaccines a violation? And let me say this for the record. I understand that people will have vaccine hesitancy. All we can hope to do is give them proper and good information, but we're fighting against bad and false information on a regular basis. But my question does stand to you, sir. If this is a violation of civil liberties, what does it matter, the testing phase of the drug that has been approved by the FDA at this point?
So repeat that last thing you just said. What does it matter to the
if you say that this is a matter or a violation of civil liberty, then what does it matter how long the drug has been here, or that it is mandated, or people are mandated to get it for certain jobs? The FDA has approved it. If this is just a violation to have any kind of mandate for vaccines, why are you not bent out of shape about the other vaccinations that are already mandated? If it's a civil issue, a liberty issue.
Well, I mean, I think I've made that quite clear in the fact that I do ultimately believe that this vaccine is different due to the pace of the rollout and the rapid nature of.
So it's not a civil issue.
Well, it is a civil issue, but I mean, the difference is that those vaccines that you're referring to in the past are far, far, far better established than the COVID vaccine. People can say whatever they like about FDA approval and whatnot, but the COVID vaccine has no long-term data because that would be absolutely impossible. Well, I mean, because it hasn't been used in the long term. And I'm gonna give you an example. I mean, I took the Pfizer vaccine. I took the first dose in June, and it has given me palpitations of the heart. Now, fortunately, it's not particularly serious. But the fact of the matter is that these vaccines do have proven side effects, and people do have a legitimate reason to be fearful of them, or not fearful, but to be hesitant, as you say. Mm-hmm. So I think the fundamental difference between a measles vaccine and the coronavirus vaccine is I think that people are quite justified to be against, or have some reason to be skeptical of the COVID-19 vaccines, whereas I think that those other vaccines you're referring to are far more established and far more proven, and against disease, which in some cases is even more serious than COVID.
So I want you to understand the argument that you're making. You're not making a civil liberties argument, because if you were making a civil liberties argument, you would have intellectual integrity in the application of your argument, which means your argument would also apply to the current vaccine mandates that are being implemented across the country and beyond. But you don't have an issue with that because of the established nature of these particular vaccinations. So you do not fundamentally believe that vaccine mandates in context are an in fact violation of civil liberty. You simply believe that this particular vaccination warrants more exhaustive study and more data, correct? That's really the argument you're making, not a civil liberties argument, but a COVID vaccine argument based on the longevity or lack thereof of the background of the drug, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's look at it like this. Civil liberties are, with the question of civil liberties, there always has to be some level of balance between what protects a population and what keeps them free. Okay, so there have to be compromises. And all I'm saying is that on the issue of this particular vaccine, I think to force it on people when it hasn't even been, in rollout for a year, and then forcing them to live as second-class citizens for not taking it is basically a violation of their civil liberties too far. But it's not just that. That is just one of the broad arguments I want to bring to you today about vaccine passports. I mean, one of the issues, and I think this came out in a Harvard poll recently, is that the country is deeply divided on the issue. America, it's like most things, it's 50-50 on, and there are some people who believe it should be on airplanes but not in businesses. Some people don't believe it at all. Some people believe it should be everywhere. So that's another issue. It's a highly contentious issue, and I think, given the situation that America is in, with everything that's gone on, whether be it with elections, be it the riots last year, be it Afghanistan, this is just going to be another thing that stirs the melting pot of civil society breaking down. The other point I want to make is that vaccines, vaccine passports, and the reality is that there is a large percentage of the population who are just not going to take it, no matter how hard you push, because they've decided. And in the American economy and the global economy has already taken absolute battering as a result of lockdown measures, which I believe to be in a lot of cases overly draconian. So the economy is already suffering, and private businesses are fighting for their lives to get back to where they were before. And this is only going to further damage, further wreak economic damage on where it is imposed, particularly on things like the tourist industry or the hospitality sector. And this is a time where the economy needs to bounce back. And for anyone who says it's economy versus lives, I'm afraid that is a lie, because the economy has always and will always be intimately linked to the health of people, because when people have money, they can afford better healthcare. So there are a range of issues surrounding vaccine.
Right. So let me respond to this. Number one, when you say that people are being forced to live as second-class citizens, let's be very clear. If you take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine, that is your personal healthcare decision, okay? That vaccine is really for you. The mask is for me. The mask is for the protection of others. We'll get into the mask in a minute. But if you decide not to take the vaccine, you don't have any of your rights taken away. Going to a particular country, being able to go to a particular restaurant or hold a certain job, those are not constitutional rights. Those are privileges afforded to you if you meet the qualification, right? A private company has the legal right to tell you no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. They can also enforce COVID rights if they choose to. Private companies can do that. COVID vaccine passports are allowable, at least under current statute. Also, as it relates to traveling, we've already established there's a litany of vaccines that you must have typically if you want to travel to certain places. That's already in the mandate. There's nothing new about that. Individuals who would like the privilege of traveling to a particular country, and that country has a mandate order. Hell, we got one in America. You come from certain countries, you got to have certain vaccinations. It's already here, brother, is my point. But we've never said, well, that's a violation of your constitutional or civil liberty. That's a violation of your human dignity. No, if you want the privilege of coming here, you gotta have this particular vaccine or vaccine regimen. That has already been truly established. So I find it quite ironic that your argument is that these individuals who may not be able to engage in certain privileges are somehow different than any other person who had to either get the vaccination or have a litany of vaccinations already in order to engage in certain privileges in this country and beyond. What makes it different? Why is it different when you say, okay, we don't want you having to get the COVID vaccine to work in healthcare, but we do want you to have these 18 other vaccines to work in healthcare? What's the difference? Do they have the right to mandate them or not?
I would say that, I think I've explained the difference as well as I can, which is that there are some vaccines which have been, vaccines are wonderful things. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, okay? You know, polio vaccines, measles vaccines, they've been around for decades. They were decades in the making. They're proven to work, okay? And they're highly effective, and there's very little known side effects to them. The COVID vaccine is fundamentally different because it only came out last December, having been rushed through, and I understand why it had to be rushed through, but there are issues with it. There is the question of side effect, which I felt myself because it led to abnormal heart rhythms, which I've had to check out. But even beyond that, got what I was going to say now. Even beyond that, civil liberties, vaccines. I've gone completely blank. What was I going to say?
Brother, let me help you out here.
Vaccines.
Okay. So
I'll come back in a second.
All right, so let me hit on one of your points you made. We only have a couple of minutes, but you talked about the effectiveness of these other vaccines. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the effectiveness of
I remember my
COVID. All right, we'll come back in a second. I want you to remember the number 99%. Let me tell you what 99% applies to. 99% of the individuals who are fully vaccinated, if you got your vaccination, guess what happens? You don't die.
I know the figure you're referring to, which is 99% of people who died in hospital haven't taken the vaccine.
Right, and the other side of that is, if you have it, you're not gonna die from it. If you got the vaccination, you don't die from the variant. You can still catch the variant and still have adverse effects from the variant, but you won't die. You virtually have a 100% chance of living. Now that's called effectiveness. If you're arguing effectiveness of the vaccine, why do you leave that number out? That's a hell of a number there, brother.
Well, that's the thing and you brought me perfectly onto the point that I just so embarrassingly forgot. The fact of the matter is there are serious questions around vaccine effectiveness. I mean, if you've taken the vaccine, why are you wearing a mask? Why are people being forced to self-isolate? Why are people still getting COVID? I heard the other day that the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's got two, who had both COVID vaccinations, contracted COVID to quite a serious degree. The vaccines have been proven to be effective, and I'm not totally opposed to them. As I told you, I took the vaccine myself, and unfortunately got an unfortunate side effect from it. But I can even accept that was a rarity, and I was just unlucky. But the fact of the matter is that with the Delta variant and these new variants that are coming up all the time, there are serious questions as to how effective it actually is. Because if people are vaccinated, they should be able to take off the mask and they should be going back to living normally, just as they would be able to if they.
Let me ask you this, brother. Let me ask you, man, before we part. You ever known somebody had the flu shot and still caught the flu?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, that's your answer. When you ask me the question about, if you have the vaccination, but you still can catch COVID or spread COVID, well, that's your answer. We all know someone who had a flu vaccine and still actually caught a flu that season after they received the vaccination. It does happen. Also, the COVID variant is a mutation. It's a mutation of the original COVID-19, which means you still can catch it even with the vaccination. And also the mask. The mask is because science has proven that even with the vaccination and you being asymptomatic and you catch the variant, the COVID variant, you can still spread it to other people without knowing so. So that's your scientific answer. And the mask decreases the spread of COVID by 90%. I hope I answered all of your questions today, brother. I appreciate you being on Indisputable. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.